This is Stukent. We develop digital courseware and simulated internships, or as we like to call them, simternships. Our resources make the business of learning easier and more engaging, helping educators help students help the world. Here's how we can help you. A Stukent simternship mimics a real-world workspace for a semester. It asks students to perform the same tasks their supervisor would assign them on day one of an entry-level job and beyond. A simternship isn't learning gamified. It's an internship redefined. Simternships turn conceptual knowledge into demonstrable skills, helping students build impressive resumes before they graduate. Plus, they're fun. We pair our simternships with powerful courseware, packing hundreds of great resources for educators with an engaging, accessible text for students. Best of all, you can say goodbye to your dusty, out-of-date textbooks. We update our courseware annually, which means you can rest assured that your course will always be current with your industry. At Stukent, we're here to help you teach more easily and learn more effectively. Visit us online and see how easy it is to stay current with Stukent.
When it's time to create or upgrade a course, which I'm hoping it is for you, many educators struggle to find up-to-date materials and high-quality, hands-on learning experiences for students. Hi everyone, I'm Stuart Draper, the founder and CEO of Stukent. Yes, I'm the Stu in Stukent. When my former professor, Kent Lundeen, asked me to teach at my alma mater, I jumped at the opportunity. To my surprise, I couldn't find current teaching resources for digital marketing. Thrown together projects made it difficult to assess my students' competencies. Plus, grading was miserably time-consuming. My students weren't getting the education they deserved, so I started looking for a better way. I learned textbook authors and educators wanted to improve educational materials, but the traditional publishing system had totally failed them. I had an extraordinary entrepreneur's moment and realized I could fix a major problem. So I co-authored Digital Marketing Essentials with Jeff Larson, a professor of marketing at BYU. We self-published the courseware on Stukent.com because I wanted to update it every year. We then paired it with the world's first digital marketing simulation. What I realized is that pairing up-to-date courseware with first-in-the-world simulations could help professors teach any subject. Stukent set off on a mission to change education from the inside out. I've recruited a team of industry-leading product engineers, subject matter experts, and hundreds of top educators just like you who have the same mission. We're dedicated to bringing you the best simulations and courseware in the industry, and we're not going anywhere. Over the last decade, we've experienced explosive growth, and we now offer more than 40 simternships and courseware bundles across 4 different categories: marketing, business, communications, and accounting. To date, we've helped nearly 1 million students at schools all over the world, and we can't wait to help you and your students next. Please take a moment to see what Stukent can do for you today here on the website. Explore the products we're building for tomorrow, and join us on our mission to help educators help students help the world. We are so excited to invite you to attend ProfCon for Marketing 2023, hosted by Stukent. So what is ProfCon? ProfCon is a 3-day marketing educator conference full of networking and learning opportunities, including keynotes, breakout sessions, and panel discussions to help you learn, prepare, and share. We have curated a powerhouse lineup of presenters, including research insights from leading educators as well as real-world insights from marketing industry experts. This year, we will be gathering in Idaho Falls, Idaho, the gateway to Yellowstone and Grand Teton National Parks. Come join us for the #1 rated Marketing Educator Conference, June 14th through 16th. Visit Stukent.com/ProfCon to register today.
Hello and welcome everyone to our 10th Stukent Digital Summit. And thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Paul Cotter. I'm your host today. I'm the Director of Product Marketing for Higher Education here at Stukent. I'm thrilled that you're all here with us today. As we begin, I want to encourage you to use the chat feature. Go ahead, start out. Some of you are already doing it. Tell us where you're from. Tell us which school you teach at. Tell us which courses you teach. We're interested. We want to know. We want you to be active on the chat today. If you have any questions throughout today's event, go ahead and chat them in. Our amazing team is standing by to answer your questions live throughout. So it looks like we have Rakesh from Chicago. We have Jacob from Dallas. We have Andrew from New York, Craig from Philadelphia, Kevin from LA, creating analytics classes for all business majors at LA Tech. That's awesome. Let's see, Desiree joining us from Columbus, Ohio. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so excited that you're with us today. On the screen right now, we're going to put up the agenda for today, and you can see the times for each of our speaking sessions. This event will end at 3 p.m. If you need to leave early, don't worry. We plan to share the recording with everyone who attended and everyone who signed up. In that recording, we'll include all the links and all the presentations shared throughout this event. We are also going to have multiple Q&As today after each one of our sessions. So go ahead and chat in any questions that you have. And this goes without saying, but please be respectful and polite when you're commenting today. Now, today is Cinco de Mayo, and we thought it would be fun to kick today off with a trivia question related to the holiday. While many believe that Cinco de Mayo is Mexicans' Independence Day, it's actually a celebration in honor of the underdog victory of the Mexican army in the Battle of Puebla against the French. So here's our poll question. We're going to put it up right now. How many pounds of avocados are consumed by people in the US on Cinco de Mayo? Is it 2 million, 42 million, 17 million, or 81 million? So put your answers in there, and I'll come back in a little bit with the answer. Throughout today's event, we are also going to have many different opportunities for you to win some great prizes. Our first giveaway is for 2 $50 gift cards. They'll be chosen from our most engaged attendees in the chat, so be sure and chat it up today. We will also award one attendee at the end of the event with a $100 gift card just for attending. All winners must be present to attend. And then to enter the third giveaway, hop on your favorite social media site, post what you learned throughout the event, and use the hashtag StukentDS23. That's StukentDS23. 2 winners will receive a $65 gift card. Now let's go back to that poll question. It looks like the majority here is at 42 million pounds. Well, guess what? The answer is 81 million pounds. That is a ton of avocados. So I guess enjoy. That's a lot of guacamole, right? So at Stukent, our mission is to help you, help your students, help the world. And to kick things off today, I'm really excited to introduce Stukent's CEO and founder, Stuart Draper. He's here to share a few thoughts as we begin this morning.
Hey, you guys. Paul, thank you so much. There's so much to say, so little time. 9.5 years now. That's how long Stukent's been serving and trying to fulfill our mission to help educators, help students, help the world. And I want to thank you, especially those of you who may even be with us here today that have been with us throughout those 9 years. Spring 2014 was when we made our first dollar and got things going. Our mission remains the same: help educators, help students, help the world. And as I've been trying to serve and do my part with that, I've gone on campuses, Massachusetts last fall. I was in Ohio, Florida, and California this winter visiting, and I guess winter and beginning of spring, which still felt like winter. Even in San Diego, I was cold. It's been a rough, long winter. We're really ready for the warmth to come our way. But these campus visits that I went on were really eye-opening for me. Learned so much from the experience and grateful for those of you who took time to meet with me in person. We want to, as a business, continue to listen and learn and make sure that what we're creating for you are the things that are really going to help you and that are going to make not only your lives easier, but also prepare your students for their careers and beyond. So I have 2 invites for you today, personal invites. I hope you'll come and join us at ProfCon in June here in Idaho Falls. We're going to go over and see either Jackson, if you want to go over and see Jackson Hole, Wyoming, or and that's Grand Teton National Park, by the way. Or you can go on a trip to Yellowstone with us. We're going 2 different locations for one of the 3 days of the event. So hope to see you there. A lot of great content will be included. Also, I wanted to invite you to become an innovation partner and look into what that looks like. So in the chat, if someone can pop in there, a link to our innovation partners page where you can learn more about everything that Stukent's doing to work with experts to make sure that what we're creating in our courseware and Simternships is everything you could ever dream of as an educator. I just mentioned Simternships. Let me take a second and share why I'm so in love with Simternships. You hear the phrase, it's like riding a bike, right? Why do they say that? Well, once you've ridden a bike, once you've experienced it, then you can do it over and over again. And you can wait 5-6 years without riding a bike. When you get back on, really quickly, you remember how to do it, right? Simternships, our aim with those is to give students that type of experience where they may not get to do what they're learning about on the job in year 1 or 2. It may take till year 5 or 10, but because they experienced it, they didn't just learn about it and take a test for it. They actually got to experience it. 5-10 years later, they'll be able to do it just like riding a bike. That's the aim with Simternships. Another thing I love about a Simternship, if you're a marketing major, you're likely to get a marketing internship. And maybe you're able to get 2 internships related to marketing. You're never going to get an accounting internship or a finance internship if you're a marketing major, right? And the time doesn't allow for it. Businesses aren't interested in providing those opportunities to people that aren't specifically aimed at that major. For that reason, I love Simternships because when I, as a marketer, enter the workforce, if I've also not only gotten my 2 in-person marketing internships and participated in marketing Simternships and have the Simternship experience on accounting and other business related subjects like supply chain, I am a much more well-rounded marketer. Okay, I'll keep it short and sweet. To finish, Stukent has found a really amazing product market fit that's allowed Stukent to grow over these 9.5 years so well, so much. This year we'll celebrate 6 years in a row of being one of the fastest growing companies in America on the Inc. 5000 list. It's phenomenal. I'm very proud of what the team has done. We want to now focus a little bit more on feature market fit, giving you guys the additional features that you need to make your lives even easier and better. And so that's a focus for 2023 for us. Thank you for taking time to be with us today. Enjoy the rest of the show. And again, thank you for being a part of our mission to help your students and support them and what they're going to go do, the amazing things they'll do in the world.
Thank you, Stu. As Stu said, we are so excited about our Simternships and the different things that we're doing here. And just so that you know, Stukent is expanding daily. We now have Simternships and courseware in marketing areas, in communication category, in business category, and like Stu said, now in accounting. So we're excited to have that. You can see some of the courseware covers on the wall behind us. So thanks everyone for your support. We're really grateful. Now, to kick things off today, I want to bring on and introduce Dustin Brackett. Dustin is the CEO and founder of Hive Strategy, Hive Hub, and he's the author of Market Like a Human. He leads engaging and educational sessions and keynotes focused on the power of incorporating humanity in both marketing and sales. So Dustin, come on stage. Great. Good morning, Dustin.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I'm going to turn the time over to you, and you have the stage now, Dustin.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. So excited to be here, and I hope that you get a lot out of this digital summit. Like Paul mentioned, I'm Dustin Brackett, CEO and founder of Hive Strategy and Hive Hub. We're an inbound marketing agency, and I'm also the author of Market Like a Human. Today, I'm going to be talking about how to engage like a human and how we can adopt the pillars of my book to support student success and career growth. So Market Like a Human was written to help businesses kind of adopt a more human process with their marketing and sales, but the same pillars hold true for individuals entering the workforce and transforming the organizations that they work for. The book is all about getting back to building real human connections with our audience, whether that's students or peers or customers or organizations. I'm also going to be giving away 10 books at the end of this session, so you can scan the QR code in the slide, also in the pop-up on your screen right now. I'll be announcing those at the end of my session and during the Q&A. Before we dive into the full presentation, I have a quick poll. So over the last few years, how do you feel your connection with students and between students has changed? Do you feel like you're more connected than you were, there's been no change, or you're less connected than you were just a few years ago? I'll give a few minutes to answer that poll, but also wanted to ask a fun question. To get us started here, get us warmed up a little bit. So in the chat, if you can, I want to know what your favorite weird food combination is. We were talking a little bit before the presentation started, and mine is cottage cheese, peanut butter, and granola. And I think I made a few people a little queasy, and that's totally fine. But want to hear, like, what are some of those weird food combinations that you just love that other people think are weird? If you want to go ahead and put that in the chat, there's some really interesting ones already coming around. Peanut butter and banana is not a weird food combination. That's just life. Oreos and peanut butter, lots of peanut butter going on. I like it. Pineapple, Canadian bacon, and black olive pizza. There's about to be a fight going on, I'm sure, in the chat about pineapple on pizza. Chips in your sandwich. Hot Cheetos and cream cheese, peanut butter and bacon, strawberries, sour cream, and brown sugar. That one's interesting. But getting back to the poll. So looking at it, it looks like the majority of us feel like we're less connected than we were just a few years ago. And that all comes back to having the world shift to a more digital existence. Our reliance on technology and automation has made it really difficult for all of us to connect on that human level. There's a crisis of disconnection happening throughout the world, and particularly with our students entering the workforce. Because of our reliance on technology, so many students opting for online classes, and so many employers moving to a fully remote or hybrid workplace, it's created a society that lacks that human touch and that ability to connect even on a basic level. The solution is to introduce or reintroduce a human-centric approach to everything that we do, both inside and outside of the classroom and inside and outside of the workplace. So while Market Like a Human was written to help businesses better connect through their marketing and sales, the same pillars are important for individuals and students entering the workforce. Those pillars are transparency, personality, authenticity, consistency, being helpful, and community. So we'll dive into those pillars now. The first pillar is transparency. Transparency means sharing the good and the bad and giving the full picture. It's in a professional setting, being transparent in your resume and interviews and being honest and open about what you do know, what you don't know, and the plan to learn the skills that are necessary is super important through that whole process. Being transparent and sharing your ideas and feedback can also have a really positive impact on connecting with colleagues and higher ups. There's also this negative perception out there that everyone lies on their resume, right? But the fact is, through the interview process, it's going to be really obvious if you lied. So instead, we should be teaching our students to embrace what they do know, highlight that, and also be open and transparent about what they don't know, but also their passion and willingness to learn. Taking the time to acknowledge any of those holes in your resume speaks very highly to character and coachability. An example that we had recently was we were hiring for a director of marketing operations, and we interviewed a guy that was really interesting to us. We thought was a really good fit. During the interview process, all of us, and him included, kind of came to the realization that he's probably not the best fit for this position. But through the interview process, he was open about what he does know, what he doesn't know, what his plan was to learn those skills and his goals for his career. And so we didn't hire him for that director of marketing operations position, but instead we all came together internally and tried to figure out a way to get this guy on our team. We created a brand new position specifically for him because we felt like he was such a good fit for who we are as an organization and where we're trying to go. The second pillar is personality. And personality is all about embracing and owning who you are, because your experience and your perspective and your values are really valuable to organizations. Diversity in thought and ideas and skills are important for all of our organizations to grow. Students often think as they're entering the workforce that they have to fit a mold, or that they have to take on the personality of the organization that they're working for, or check off all of those company boxes. But in reality, companies are really looking for diversity. Diversity in race and gender and ethnicity, yes, but also diversity in thought and ideas. No hiring manager, and I mean no hiring manager in the entire world, is excited about the same message and language and tone and vibe coming from every single candidate. By sharing your personality and owning who you are, you set yourself apart and become memorable. One value that I hope every student takes to heart is to dare to be different and own it. Our differences are what move us forward. Encouraging our students to embrace who they are, embrace those differences, all of that will help move all of our organizations forward and become more successful. At my agency, we have a leadership team, and every single person on that leadership team started in a non-leadership position with us. But they all embraced their personality, and they were all open to sharing their ideas and thoughts and experience in a way that helped us move the agency forward. They weren't afraid of asking stupid questions or sharing an opinion that wasn't well received by the rest of the team. They were who they are, and they owned that. And that helped us grow the agency and therefore grow their careers as well. The third pillar is authenticity. Authenticity is all about following through on your promises, hitting deadlines, being honest about your skill set, taking risks, being willing to try and fail, and even about promoting your social passions. It goes hand in hand with personality, but understanding who you are and what you care about and bringing that to the workplace makes you different. All of our businesses are looking for employees that do the right thing and follow through. And that starts with building a sense of accountability and discipline in our students to help them embrace those challenges and assignments and to follow through on those promises. One of the main things that I talk with a lot of our clients about is clearly defining their mission statement and vision statement. If we don't know where we want to go, we can't get there. And that's something that a lot of organizations don't understand, but a lot of students really don't understand either. So going back to our classrooms and having them define and understand what their personal mission and vision are for their careers can help them make decisions to get on the right path to achieve those goals and to get where they want to go with their career. The fourth pillar is consistency. Showing up when you're expected is half the battle, especially when we're talking about a remote environment. Helping students to develop those strong habits can really have an impact on their professional career, especially early on. And being consistent and predictable is a vastly underrated skill that we don't take serious enough. When you show up when you're expected, you become reliable. And when we're talking about remote work, there are a lot of distractions that far too often get the best of our young employees. We need to be teaching our students good habits of accountability and discipline and consistency in order for them to succeed in the world today and what the landscape looks like today. So my agency is a fully remote business. We have employees from Oregon down to Florida and everywhere in between. Everyone works from home, but they're all expected to kind of self-motivate, and they're in charge of their own day to make sure that they get what they need done so that we can deliver for clients and deliver for ourselves in a way that we're expecting to. What we've seen, though, is some employees, especially some of the younger employees that we work with, aren't really equipped or built for that because they haven't really experienced it before. It's so important that in our classrooms, we're teaching those habits so that when they get into their careers, they're ready for that challenge. Most students entering the workplace today and in the years to come will have some sort of remote responsibility, whether it's a fully remote position or a hybrid position. The world is just moving that direction. And if we're not teaching these skills now, they're not going to succeed in those roles. The fifth pillar is being helpful. Every business and every individual in the world has a purpose, and that's to help someone. Organizations are looking for students and employees to come in and help them achieve that. Rather than chasing paychecks, and all of us have fallen victim to that, we should be chasing how we can be most helpful and finding ways that we can provide value both through the interview process and in that role to help these organizations find that solution and achieve those goals. Being helpful, though, goes far beyond that interview process. We need to be continuously evaluating where we can fit in, where we can help, even if it's outside of our traditional job description. It's all about taking steps forward. And one of the things that I preach to my team all the time, there's some of them on the call right now that are probably about to roll their eyes, but it's all about taking steps. And even if those steps are in the wrong direction, that's better than not taking any steps at all. In a remote world, and even in an in-person world, we can't just look over the shoulders of every employee. We need people to have the initiative and have the motivation to take steps and to own their day. And that's not really an innate skill built into a lot of young professionals. The sixth and final pillar is community. And it's all about surrounding yourself with people that push you forward. Don't burn bridges, and build a community of people smarter and more experienced than you to learn from. By working to build a community of mentors and peers, you enable yourself to learn and grow. And every professional in this session right now, all of you have the opportunity to be part of your students' communities. Embrace that, own that, get involved. It means more to their careers than you think it does. By pushing students to continuously listen and learn and grow, we can enable career success. Because we were all there once, right? The 20-something-year-old that thinks they know everything. And I was definitely that guy. I started my company only a couple years out of college, but I didn't take the time during my college years to really develop that community. I didn't have professors or peers or friends that were kind of jumping in to join my community to push me forward. And so I had to learn how to build and run and grow a company by myself. And I had to learn how to do all of those things through mistakes and missteps. If I had taken the time, though, to build that community, and I had professors and peers jumping in to push me forward, I could have avoided so many of those mistakes early in my career that I had to just endure. We have to empower our students to understand that they don't know everything, but that they can find the answer to anything by continuously listening, learning, and educating themselves. By embracing these pillars, your students can set themselves apart, both in the interview process and within their organizations that they work for, and they can help those organizations to better connect internally and with their audience. We have to get back to engaging like humans, even if we're in a remote environment. So remember back at the beginning of the session, I talked about weird food combinations. You guys got the inside scoop on the peanut butter and cottage cheese and granola. Thank me later, it's fine. So that was a fun icebreaker, get everyone warmed up. There were lots of crazy answers in there. I don't know about strawberries and cream cheese or strawberries and sour cream. But it was also an intentional way for me to connect like a human and engage more like a human. It helped to humanize myself for this presentation, but it also got everyone to come together and humanize everyone that's here today. For anyone interested in learning more about Market Like a Human or the overarching concepts, you can visit marketlikeahuman.com for blog posts and podcasts and events and other resources that could be useful for you or within your classrooms. And so now I want to give away the first set of those books to the first winners. So I very much apologize if I mispronounce your names, which I'm probably going to do, but you all work at universities, so you're used to you doing that. So the first 5 winners are Tomby Clark, Buddy Howell, Gail Lewis, Jane Medling, and this one I'm definitely going to get wrong. I'm going to go with Zan McGivney. I'll announce the next 5 during the Q&A session, but I'll also be reaching out for addresses to send you a signed copy of the book. And if you didn't win and you're not part of the next group that wins, we will also have the opportunity to purchase the book at marketlikeahuman.com. Thank you all so much for joining today. I hope you got something out of my session. I want to invite you all to connect with me on LinkedIn, through email, through hivestrategy.com or marketlikeahuman.com. I want to be a resource. I want to help your classes. I'm passionate about marketing like a human and engaging like a human. And if I can be a resource for any of you or for your classes, please don't hesitate to reach out. And now I think we've got some time for Q&A.
Yes, thank you, Dustin. I enjoyed hearing about your pillars. That was awesome. I just wanted to read one of the comments that came through. Michael said, I'm going to adapt this entire presentation and show it to students with proper credits, of course. So I think there's been a lot of good feedback in here. So we want to jump into our Q&A here, and I'm going to list some of the questions I'm going to start with one. It says, with the rise of AI, do you feel like teaching humanistic qualities will get harder or easier in the coming years?
AI is super interesting, and it's something that I've kind of dived into a lot. And there's actually, in my book, I have a section that I talk about AI quite a bit because I think it is going to transform a lot of different industries. For my book, I interviewed Paul Raetzer. So he's the founder of the Marketing AI Institute, and talked to him a little bit about, how is he using AI to market the Marketing AI Institute? And he kind of gave me this story about running AI workshops and webinars. He does it every month. They have hundreds of attendees. And through that, after each event, they reach out individually, one-on-one through LinkedIn. They're reaching out to thank everyone for coming, answering questions, things like that. And kind of through this conversation, I was like, okay, you didn't get to the AI part yet. And so he's like, well, we're enabled to do that and to connect one-on-one in that human way because we're using AI to take things off of our plates that we don't need to do or that aren't necessary for that connection. And I thought that was really interesting. And so I think the answer to that is, I think it's going to enable us to connect even more and will improve that crisis of disconnection because it'll be able to take those things off of our plate that we don't need to worry about. And so it's going to free up time for us to better engage with the different humans.
Great. Amber asked, I would love to hear more about your experience helping facilitate growth in young employees.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, in my career, I was a very young founder. I was only a couple years, if that, out of college. And so I'm very passionate about young employees and helping them to grow and find their place and find their passions. And so I think it's all about taking an interest in those people and being a mentor. And I think that a lot of professors and all of the people kind of in this session right now have that opportunity to be that person for someone. But I think that a lot of us don't take enough initiative to do that because honestly, our students and our young employees, they don't really know to ask for that or how to approach that. And I think it's on us to be that for them and kind of enable that growth through us.
Great, thank you. Another question we have is, what's the best and most professional way to become a part of our students' communities?
Yeah, I think this one's interesting. So my wife is a high school teacher. And so I've talked to her many times about this, and she's very adamant about like having a very hard line, right? She is in high school. She is very much a teacher and needs to keep that very professional relationship. And she's seen some of her peers and other teachers get in trouble or get into like sticky situations because they were too friendly with their students or, connected with them on LinkedIn or on Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat or whatever. And so I think that for that age, that makes total sense. I think when we're talking about college age students or students that are entering the workforce, I think that we can build those relationships. And I think connecting through LinkedIn or sharing emails or like connecting with those people outside of the classroom is really important. And I think that the professors and the professionals that take that initiative and connect with those people that way really help to propel those employees' careers. So I connect with them on LinkedIn, connect with them through email. Like I'm not suggesting that you are handing out your cell phone number to all your students, but the ones that are truly passionate and you connect with and that you see a way to help them, give them a way to connect with you and reach out to you when they have questions or they're going through career crises.
Yeah, great. Just to kind of follow that up, Barbara asked, are there any ways beyond LinkedIn that you suggest as a business owner that our soon-to-be graduate students network?
I think that there's a lot of ways that we can network, and there's groups across all social networks. I think getting involved in even like book clubs and professional growth communities and networking and things like that can all be really impactful. But I think one of the traps is that the ones that need that networking, the students, the young professionals, are not necessarily the ones that, well, they're the ones that are they're joining these networking groups and they're doing those things, but not enough of us that have that experience and have that life experience to propel them forward. Not enough of us are taking the initiative. And so getting involved in your community, in things happening on campus and things like that, so that your students can connect with you, I think is really important.
Awesome. Thanks for those suggestions, Dustin. Dustin, I want to give you time to be able to announce the other winners before we wrap up the Q&A.
Yeah.
So I'll let you do that now.
The other 5 winners are Krista Bodner. Sandra, I'm going to mess up your last name. Sandra Jawberg, something like that. Taylor Golightly, Mark Jensen, and Jessica Carr. So we'll be reaching out to all 10 of you to get your physical addresses so we can send out signed copies of the books. And thank you all for participating. I'm excited for you to read it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dustin. And thanks to your team for helping with this presentation. And thanks to Amber for making the introduction. We're grateful that you were able to visit with us today, and wish you the best.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
See ya. Okay, so earlier this week, I saw a really cool standout quote about soft skills. And it was soft skills versus hard skills. And it said, hard skills get you hired, but soft skills get you promoted. And I think that is a lot of what Dustin talked about. And I thought this was a perfect quote to share at today's event. We know that in order to be successful in today's business world, students need to learn more than just hard skills. Now at Stukent, we not only create innovative courseware and simulations that teach hard skills, but we also work with award-winning professors like Dr. Laura Munoz and Dr. Rich Miller from the University of Dallas, who understand the challenges professors and students face on a daily basis, not only as students, but in the workforce. Dr. Munoz and Dr. Miller are the authors of Stukent's Introduction to Business courseware. And in this courseware, they've put an extra focus on highlighting the importance of power skills and how they help students succeed in the workplace. Before we begin our next session, I want to show you just a quick video of Dr. Munoz and Dr. Miller. And I want you to listen to how they integrate these power skills or soft skills into their dynamic Intro to Business course. And then as a special gift to everyone attending today, we want to offer you free instructor access to all of our courseware and simternships here at Stukent. So with instructor access, you'll be able to preview the entire courseware and the simternship, including lessons plans, assignments, lecture slides, and more. So we're going to pop up some links where you can go ahead and do that at your convenience. So we're going to play this video now, and then we'll go into our next speaker.
I will say another key differentiator for us is the fact that we focus on power skills. Now, usually people refer to this as soft skills. We know soft skills such as having emotional intelligence, grit, redefining what success and failure is, can certainly lead to better workers who are more professional and better at resolving issues in their companies or in their jobs.
Yes, we've all seen the students that have come back from their internships that have great technical skills, but typically the thing that they're having the trouble with is communicating with a coworker. They've got somebody that's difficult on their team and they need to form that relationship with the person. They need to know what it takes to succeed in the business. We can all teach them the basics of accounting or operations management or marketing, but to truly set our students apart and to put them on the best footing possible in internships and their careers is through these soft skills that we have a lot of materials on in the courseware.
Our next speaker is an assistant professor of sales at Purdue University, where she specializes in both sales and marketing and studies the intersection of technology and professional sales. Prior to entering academia, Dr. Jen Riley was an award-winning entrepreneur and corporate marketing consultant. She is passionate about entrepreneurship education and loves finding innovative ways to engage students and help them discover their passions and talents. Please welcome to the stage Dr. Jen Riley.
Hello, everyone. I am so happy to be here. Great session right before this. Good reminders for us to help our students. And it is a perfect segue into the presentation that I am going to share with you all today, talking about soft skills and how we bridge that gap to help students understand those soft skills, but also connect those hard things that we're teaching them for them to go out into the world with the soft skills that help them excel in their positions after they get hired. So, competition is everywhere. It has increased so much. 97% of employers are saying that soft skills are as important, if not more important, than hard skills. A lot of situations, I would tell students, especially when I was in undergrad and on to today, companies will teach you how they want you to do it. College is for you to really learn how to learn. You are understanding, you're broadening your scope of experiences, you're meeting new people, you are expanding your worldview, and you're learning some of those hard skills, some of that information, some of those fundamentals, but you're also learning those interpersonal skills. That's why over 50% of employees fail within 18 months due to their lack of soft skills. They might have known the information, but they don't necessarily know how to excel, how to apply it, how to have those interactions with their peers. And that unfortunately ends up meaning that they fail in their roles. But we want to go against that. We don't want that to happen to our students. So let's talk about those soft skills and how we can combat this so that our students are not part of this percentage. Now, this is fundamentals, right? Going to the basics, the hard skills versus the soft skills. Those hard skills are more tangible, those things that you can quantify, that you can evaluate and assess. Do you know this software package or do you not? Can you run this analysis or can you not? Do you know pivot tables? Those things that you can really assess. Do you know the language C++? Are you fluent in Spanish, etc.? That's what employers are looking for those hard skills. That's what we concentrate so much in all of our courseware in the Stukent platform and the textbooks that we adopt. That's what we're trying to get across to students. The soft skills, however, are more of those not quantifiable attributes that are more so observed in action, and they vary based on the person or the situation. You can have a very strong soft skills in a certain situation, and then in another where you're a little bit more uncomfortable, they don't shine as much. They're often subjective. How did you handle this conflict? Did you handle it properly? Right? There is no right way to do things for a broad scope. Everybody does things differently. So that's what we're really talking about with these soft skills. If we go and define it, it's really talking about how you effectively interact with other people. What do you guys think are some soft skills that come to mind? Maybe in your interactions with other people, with students, with other faculty members. If you came from industry, go ahead and pop them in the chat so we can see what we're thinking when we think about soft skills. Humor, that is a great one. Being able to break that ice and put other people at ease. Especially when I teach sales, that is something that we are coaching students on being able to do. How are you connecting with people as a person or like a human, as we just heard. Empathy, focusing on the relationships and the underlying interactions between relationships. Influence, conflict management is a huge one. We did that in my sales management class this semester, and man, let me tell you, that was a lively conversation just to get students to understand different aspects and sides of conflict. Everybody does not have the same experience. In a conflict between two people, there are three sides to what happened, right? Trust is a really big one. Listening and over talking. You have two ears and one mouth for a reason, right? Teamwork. All of these are great soft skills. Some top soft skills from articles that I found online and things that I hear when I talk to employers, we're talking about that communication, right? Written communication is huge. I know I was literally just talking to somebody the other day to say, I honestly have no idea what these students are talking about half the time. They use so many abbreviations. It's almost like I have to have one tab open just to figure out what they're talking about with the for real, and the cap and the this and the that. So much of communication comes down to understanding the message that you're trying to portray and what you're trying to receive, right? Written communication, non-verbal communication, verbal communication, all things that we can help students perfect. That time management piece is huge. Trying to get students to understand you have a finite amount of hours in a given day. If you're practicing 9 hours a day, you're in class 4 hours a day, you're socializing 6 hours a day, you've run out of time. How are we actually managing your time? How are you reminding yourself that you have these assignments? I know I talk to students all the time and say, like, okay, you were supposed to be doing things outside of class. What kind of regimen do you have? What kind of system do you have? And that all goes back to time management. Being able to adapt to the situation on the fly. Yes, you prepared one thing, hopefully, ideally, right? But the customer says something different. You have to pivot. You're seeing your dashboard and your analytics for Google Analytics, and you're seeing the bounce rate increase. What's happening on your landing page that you need to adjust? Are we doing A/B testing in emails? Those things of being able to actually adapt, take those hard skills to the next level, utilizing soft skills. Critical thinking, pushing them to say, hey, think about this from a different perspective. That's one thing that I do in my entrepreneurship courseware that helps them look at things from different perspectives, not only from you as a consumer view, not only from you as a marketer. Let's look at it from the IT perspective. Are we promising this person that we can implement this system in a time that's not going to actually work for the greater good of the business? Just thinking about things holistically, that end-to-end thought process. Empathy is one that we saw in the chat as well. That emotional intelligence is so important. Not only being able to be self-aware and regulate yourself, but also be aware of what's happening from the person that you're talking to. If you are engaging with somebody on social media as a marketing manager, for example, and they're talking to you in all caps, should you treat them a little differently? Should you understand that they're probably upset? And being able to adjust accordingly. Accepting feedback is a huge one. I tell students all the time, it's not bad that you received a B. I'm giving you feedback for how you can get better. Don't just look at the number and then say, all right, whatever, this is how much I got. Look at the feedback because you want to get better. When you get into the working world, you're having performance reviews and they're giving you that feedback of what they want to see from you in the future. It's not a time to shut down. It's not a time to throw up your hands. It's a time to say, okay, I know this is how I need to adjust going forward. And this is something that students don't know. We're in a society where you feel the need to be perfect all the time. Just look at social media, right? We put our best and our brightest out front so that people see that. And then we hide the kind of imperfections and we don't want things to be done until it's perfect. Put it out there. You have to get feedback. If you're not getting feedback, then your perspective is limited. So that's just one of them, teamwork, right? Nobody works in a silo. I tell my students that all the time. I don't care if you're in marketing, finance, accounting, IT, HR, you are literally always going to work in a team. Even if you're an entrepreneur, your customers are part of your team. They're part of your stakeholders. You hire people, that's still a team. There are layers to the team, but you still have to work in a team. How are we helping students? I know students hate group work. I have something that's going to address that here shortly, but these are all soft skills that we are in charge as faculty, as people in academia, to help students understand these and how they connect to their hard skills that we're teaching them. So how are we teaching soft skills? This is something that a lot of academics are struggling with. I'm so focused in this 16 weeks that I can't focus on all of these ancillary things. I'm trying to get them to understand these aspects, right? These elements of how to apply the hard skills part of it. How am I supposed to tack on the soft skills as well? I have some opinions for you. So 3 areas that I use to help integrate those classroom lessons of hard skills with those soft skills that I want to encourage. One is role play activities. Now, this is not just for sales. I role play in negotiations classes. I role play in entrepreneurship classes, in general business classes, first year experience classes. All classes can benefit from a role play because just like the sim-ternships, this gives the students an opportunity to participate. We're not just lecturing, we're not pointing to slides, we're not giving them definitions that in all honesty, they can Google on their own. We're trying to connect the dots for them because that's where the value comes in for education. How do you respond in this specific scenario? This is the background, this is the information, and then you have that conversation. You have them act it out or you express that and go through it. We'll talk about that more here shortly. Improv exercises are another way that I help students hone soft skills. Go ahead and pop it in the chat. What do you guys think students are getting from improv exercises? Improvisation, thinking on the spot, what are they understanding? What are we helping them do by utilizing improv exercises? Confidence is huge. I have some students that won't talk out loud in class. Being able to talk in front of others, responding based on listening. You guys are spot on. That critical thinking, being uncertain. If you don't know what you're doing until the moment that you're doing it, that's a real world situation because there is no opportunity where you can anticipate everything that a customer is going to say to you, everything that your supervisor is going to say to you. They could very well drop by your desk and ask you for some report. How are you going to handle that? How are you going to build that banter? How are you going to build that rapport? Students struggle with rapport a lot. After the weather and maybe the most recent sports situation, how do you actually build that rapport? So improv exercises helps with that. We'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly. And then what I like to call the group dynamics assessments and peer performance reviews. Now, as a student, I did some peer performance and let's be honest, sometimes we're biased, right? We're trying to give other students the good grade. We're just kind of checking boxes. So we'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly as well. So role play activities. Again, this is not just for sales or sales students. I like to do it based on cases. So something like the cases that are prepared that you see and that you have, that teaching note. Well, I like to take that a step further. We're not only going to assess what happened in the case and answer the questions that are going along with it, potentially. I have students work in groups to say, okay, come up with solutions, pick one of the problems that was presented, come up with solutions, right? And then it's like a little blitz round. After they come up with solutions, I talk through it with them. And then I say, okay, now play devil's advocate. Why will your solution not work? And make sure you do it thoroughly, because when we open it up to the entire class, your peers' main job will be to poke holes in your solution. Now they're challenged at a different level to say, okay, I'm not going to just say this is a solution that'll work just to check a box. Now I'm really trying to think about all the different perspectives and how to make this, as I call, bulletproof, where nobody can poke holes in this situation. Another option that I've done for role play-esque activities is I put up a scenario on the board. Usually I do it with the ethical dilemma or a situation of mixed priorities. That's a situation that I faced when I was in industry a lot. You have a lot on your plate that your supervisor has given you, but they haven't prioritized it for you. How do you go about prioritizing the amount of work that you have, right? So I will put up a scenario on the board. Let's say one that I did this semester. You have somebody that you were interviewing as a manager. This person has a spotty work history. They've only worked about 2 years for the last 5 years at different locations. They have a lot of different companies on their resume. Do we hire this person? That seems like a great fit. Your team has mixed reviews. Do we hire them? What is it that we can do during the interview process to address some of this? What types of questions could we ask? What type of information can we find? Do we do additional research on them? What does that research look like? And then you get them thinking, not only as a manager in this situation, you get them thinking about equitable hiring practices. You get them thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Well, we have this situation where this person turned down the job because you had a completely homogeneous team. The team was all Caucasian men. And this person decided they didn't want to work on that team. How do we address something like that? That's a real thing that happens out in industry. A student gave that as an example during a DEI workshop. So then we have that open discussion of, well, how do you combat something like that? Are there benefits that we could offer to make that situation a little bit more inviting to the person? We had a discussion about belonging and inclusivity. Does everybody have to look the same to make somebody feel inclusive? Well, of course not. But students haven't had those life experiences all the time, so they don't know that type of thing. Looking at it from a different perspective really helps to broaden their horizon and their perspective of different situations, whether it's one certain skill set or a geographic region or something that's a little bit more sensitive like a DEIB type of situation. Having them work through these issues in this safe environment and throw things against the wall. I have students so often, especially when it comes to performance reviews. If it's a case where like the employee has done something and they're like, well, we should adjust how we evaluate based on who it is. Now, does that ring like any alarm bells for you? That's some red flags. So as the professor in this instance, I say, well, I understand where you're coming from, but let's look at it from this perspective. If you're adjusting how you evaluate people based on who they are, there's some opportunity for some bias here, isn't it? And you're like, oh no, I didn't think about that. I say, yeah, what happens if you get somebody in a position of power that has something against someone else for whatever reason? That's a power dynamic that we aren't comfortable with, right? Because they can take that out on that person. So then they start to understand. I used one example. I said, okay, well, what happens if your employee has an affair with their supervisor? And then we can take that out on them. Like retaliation is real and they don't think about things like that because they're 19, 20, 21 years old. So they don't always think about things in a working world. We talk about stuff like there was one case where the protagonist of the case continued to drink on the job, right? And they're like, oh my God, that's horrible. Like that never happens. I'm like, well, you have these conferences, you have these, all these social events. Like, what do you do in those situations? And that helps students. And a lot of them gave me feedback and reviews in their evaluation of the class. Like, that was really helpful. No, it was not a hard skill. I was not teaching them how to run pivot tables, but when they go to that conference and they are there at that meal where they present that report, there are a lot of underlying things and little small details happening that they might not be prepared for. So I found that role play-esque activities really help, especially in facilitating that class discussion. Super simple to put together, not a whole lot of prep. Think about a situation and then just have students work through it and challenge them, pushing them outside of their comfort zone to look at it from different perspectives. Secondly, the improv exercises. So these little mini games break up the lecture time and give students the opportunity to talk to each other. I've gotten feedback from students that is like, I never knew that this person and I had all of this alike. I never knew that we were we were from the same small town, just like 2 years apart, because a lot of times we go and, they're in class and we're like, no, pay attention, listen, be quiet. But this gives them an opportunity to talk, but it's not as high stakes as a all class presentation or the end of the semester presentation when everybody is super swamped and very stressed. So have a few games, active listening, quick responsive thinking. It breaks up the monotony of those lectures that we have to do, but it also allows them a little bit of leeway. So I've done networking simulations. So it's like a blitz round. I tell them you have 2 minutes, and then I give them some type of objective. Find out what they learned from their last internship without just asking, hey, what did you learn from your last internship? Help them figure out something unique about yourself. Help them plan their summer activities. So they're given this prompt and then they have 2 minutes to find this. So that's purposeful information, and it simulates a little bit for a networking situation because students struggle, at least in my experience, they struggle with rapport building. Well, what do I talk to this person about? And then we have elevator pitches that you can hone in on, and you give them some type of prompt. Hey, you're meeting this person in the elevator, respond. And that helps them not prepare beforehand, think on the spot, get their reflex, that exercise that muscle of responding on the fly and figuring things out. Another game I like to play is telling a story. So I'll start a story and say, like, one day I was walking, and then I'll have the next person finish, and we'll do it as a class. So we'll recap, and it goes all different directions, but then it has people active listening, it has them responding in real time and adding stuff so it makes sense, right? So exercising that difference between active listening versus passive listening. Yes, we can have a lecture slide about active listening versus passive listening, but in most instances, most of them will be passive listening. So I found that improv helps a lot with that. Guess what is a game that I created where you describe a theory or a concept that you have done in class. So if we are like the 4 P's of marketing, for example, or the features, advantages, and benefits, I'll have students describe those, and then the other student has to guess what they're describing. So it challenges them to say, okay, let me make sure I really understand the 4 P's. Let me make sure I really understand FABs. And now I'm trying to explain it and utilizing that other person to kind of volley off of them and feed off of them to go through those examples. I found that that's a really helpful exercise as well. Now, the group dynamics assessment. This is one that I really enjoy because we know everybody needs group work, but everybody hates group work. And that is because somebody is not going to pull their weight. So I tell students, this is a group assignment, but everybody has to turn something in. If you do not turn something in, I'm making the assumption that you did not participate with your group. Therefore, you get a 0, regardless of what the rest of the group does. Now, when that comes to execution, That means they need to submit a group dynamics assessment. That will be 5 questions that I will ask about what happened within the group. I appoint a leader, so this gives them that leadership experience. I say, hey, leader, you have the power to delegate tasks. You have the power to call meetings and coordinate. So now they're looking at time management. Now they're looking at communication. Now they're looking at leadership. Now they're looking at delegation of tasks, and their ask is elevated, right? I'm not doing anything. All I do is appoint the leader, and then the rest goes from there. If you have a problem, you come to me. Think of me as your senior level manager. You are a middle manager. Your teammates are your workers, essentially. You guys are working together on something. If you need to escalate, that's when you bring it to me. Other than that, you are in charge of your group of 5 to 8 people to execute on this task. At the end, that one person that's the leader, they submit the final project. So they're in charge of making sure that it meets all the requirements that are a part of the assignment. They are in charge of formulating and making sure that group members help. And then all of the other group members submit a group dynamics assessment where they answer 5 questions. What was the leadership style of your leader? Do you think it was effective? Why or why not was it effective? How was it decided who would do what in the assignment? Then I go through what did you learn from the assignment? What would you do differently? And then I ask them who went above and beyond and deserves extra credit. And those 5 questions are not always for every group assignment, because what I never want to happen is that a student just answers the questions the same ways. So I change up the questions if it's a class with multiple group assignments. From there, I direct students that you will be incentivized with extra credit. You can award extra credit. The more honest your group dynamics assessment is, the better you can score. So I look at the actual assignment, and then there's a baseline. So for example, if the assignment is worth 25 points, I look at the leader's submission, grade that assignment, and then that's the baseline for everybody else. If you did not submit anything, you automatically get a 0. If you submitted something, but it's one-word responses, you're not answering the question, so you say, oh, well, they used the laissez-faire leadership style, it was fine. That's not a full credit thing. Then from that baseline grade, your grade starts to go down. So everybody on the team is not getting the same grade. And that addresses the reason why most students hate group work, because everybody gets the same grade for minimal to no work potentially, and one person has the grunt of the work. So that's how I do that. And then at the end of the semester, I surprise them and have them do a peer performance review. And they're like, oh my God, I don't know, I'm not a manager. Then I have them evaluate on a scale of 1 to 5 with the markers of it, so they know, okay, well, that person wasn't really there. I have them rating each other on things like communication, attendance for meetings, participation. Were they helpful? Were they creative? Did they provide feedback? Did they go along with the assignment? Were they an active participant? And then what type of feedback would you give to them to increase their performance in the future? Because what we want to do is always provide feedback. If we look at Bloom's taxonomy of learning, the learning is most optimized when you are teaching others. By being able to look at somebody critically and say, okay, you did great, but this is what you need to do to improve. We constantly push up the envelope of how our students are performing, and we are helping them hone that skill of looking at something critically and helping them improve as well. A bonus tip, coaching them through the process. One thing that I realized, students are partially in college to learn these things. They have not, in some instances, they've not had a job. So I asked them, like, okay, well, what happens if you have a no call, no show at your job? Have you worked? They say, yes. Okay, well, what happens? Oh, well, you get fired. Why do you think this situation is different? Oh, well, I guess it's not. Exactly. How would you feel if you were here at 9 a.m. for class that starts at 9:30 got here, and I was never here? Oh, well, I'd be mad. This was a waste of time. I did this, I sacrificed that, etc., etc. I said, exactly. So this is how you address tardiness. This is how you address no calls, no shows. For example, have students come up to me and like, oh man, I missed the deadline. I'm so sorry. Will you still take my assignment? Well, we have to have a discussion first, right? So I give them a grace period. So I know things happen in real life. So once you're in the working world, things happen, but there are also consequences. After that grace period is over, I asked them, okay, I understand you missed the assignment. You did it. Great job. That furthers your learning. What is the process that you use to manage your time? How are you managing your assignments? How were you able to forget it? Do you check in your learning management system every day? Do you use a calendar? Do you have a to-do list? How was it that you managed to forget an assignment, right? So I'm walking them through that process to say, hey, this is the proper way to address that. I understand maybe you have, extenuating circumstance. Let's work through that. Let's talk through this process. And then I make that determining decision if I want to, I help them with how this looks in the future. Like, okay, well, you're past the deadline for this assignment. Next time, this is what you should do to reinforce those rules and regulations that are in the syllabus, but also help them. And a student will say, well, I do this, I do that, I do this. And I said, okay, how's that working? Well, not great. I've missed the last 3 assignments, right? Accurate assessment. How are we going to correct it? We're in week 5. You have 11 weeks left. How are we going to correct it? Oh, I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. All right, let's talk about it. Let's work through this, right? So that helps as well. And that helps them not only be able to assert themselves with confidence, because a lot of times if you don't ask, nothing will happen, but it also forces them to think through that process and adjust accordingly, rather than waiting until it's too late. I wanted to also share with you guys my entrepreneurship courseware that I co-wrote with Stu. It helps students practice these soft skills by creating a holistic end-to-end business perspective. A lot of times we'll teach in silos of, all right, these are your accounting things. You might have a principles of marketing class, but you might not think about them connecting together. And I have a bonus for you guys today. The SMART Goals assignment from the entrepreneurship courseware is here. That is so helpful with students. They get some students are like, oh, we know this, like you make goals. Yeah. And some students are like, I don't know, I guess it's a goal. Helping them create SMART goals is a soft skill that we have to do. They have to be able to plan their future and know where they're going, or else they're just floating. The entrepreneurship courseware also has minimal prep lift that you have to do. There are lesson plans for multiple modalities and lengths of the semester, lots of activities and things that you can do. There is a flipped classroom, so you direct students to read, and then all activities that are already prepped and done and have slides for are there in the courseware. And thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. This has been a great digital summit so far. I'd love to open it up for questions now.
Jen, thank you so much. While we're giving people a chance to enter in their questions, I just want to point out, go ahead and click on the link on your screen, and we'll give you free instructor access to Jen's entrepreneurship courseware. So just take a quick moment, click on that, and you'll have access to all the assignments, the lesson plans, the syllabus. You can check it all out. We're really excited about her courseware. Also, while we're waiting for a couple of questions to come in, Jen, I want to talk to you a little bit about ProfCon. Stu mentioned that this morning, Stuart did, and you have presented at ProfCon, and you're actually presenting this year at ProfCon. Talk to us a little bit about why you think professors should make the trip and come to ProfCon.
Yeah, so I am so excited. This will be my first in-person ProfCon, and I am so excited to come out and just be in that environment with other people. These digital sessions and summits and conferences are fantastic. I love the ability to be able to attend a digital thing and not have to go through the whole travel request and expense reports. However, this experience is going to be phenomenal because we not only get the information from the speakers, we get to engage and interact with each other. And Stukent is great about that, whether it's digital or in person. But I love the addition of the networking day and just being able to be around other educators and get information for how they're doing things in class that I can add and make my class a richer experience for the students.
That's awesome. Thanks, Jen. If you're interested, go ahead and click on the link and you can learn more about ProfCon. If you have any questions, please reach out. Anyone in the chats.
Oh, looks like he's reconnecting. Let's see if we have some questions.
Sorry about that. I think I had a little glitch there. Okay, I want to hop into some questions. All right, Jen, the chats were going crazy during your presentation. Lots of comments on soft skills. This first one says, I appreciate your focus on soft skills. This is from Benton. What activities within the courseware allow practice of soft skills?
Yep, so in the entrepreneurship courseware, students are actually thinking through and completing worksheets the whole time as to what they would do from an entrepreneurship perspective. So they are making decisions and they are providing feedback to a protagonist that follows them throughout the story. So they see Jasmine Abrams, a budding entrepreneur that's working 9 to 5, that is kind of pulled to entrepreneurship, and she wants to explore that. And she's trying to figure out, well, I know I want to be an entrepreneur, but I don't know what I want to sell. And students are actually challenged to provide her that feedback, requiring them to look at the situation and kind of case that they are given in every chapter to help her address her concerns.
That's awesome. That's such a fun part of your courseware. Barbara asked, this is an interesting question. How do you deal with students trying to use charm in their improv rather than trying to think about the situation?
That happens a lot. And I tell students, customers can see through, BS, right? They can see through that. Utilizing your charisma is always appropriate if you're being appropriate, right? So we want to make sure that we're acting with integrity and that we are keeping up the ethics of ourselves and our moral compass, but as well as the company. And you still have to know your stuff and have prepared well. That happens a lot in my negotiations class where they're like, oh, I can just wing it. And I tell them and present them with information on why that is not always the best option. If you're not prepared, if you don't know your information, people will be able to see through that winging it. And because we are in an information age, they already know all the information that's out there. They're seeing you and they're interacting with you for follow-up questions. You have to have a depth of knowledge to really be able to follow up with some good questions and be able to answer them. So that exchange is really when we have to really focus. And then you utilize your charisma to deliver the information rather than skate through answering that situation.
Great. Thank you, Jen. This question is a good one. What is the hardest soft skill to teach, in your opinion?
Honestly, probably adaptability, because you can other skills like the teamwork, that's something that you constantly work on. Communication is something that is never done. I tell students soft skills are just like resumes. You're never done. I know they don't want to hear that they're never done with their resume, but everybody who sees your resume is going to have a different opinion. Same thing with soft skills. You hone it, you work on it, but the adaptability is really what gets students. And I always tell them, the better prepared you are and the more research you've done, the better you can shift and pivot based on what comes at you.
Okay, that's a great tip for being more adaptable, being prepared. So I like that. How do you make the students feel the importance and understand the importance of soft skills?
Well, it's a little bit unorthodox, but sometimes I start the semester talking about the difference between hard skills hiring and soft skills hiring. So we look at job description and I say, okay, well, what are the things that they're asking for that are intangible? What are the things that they're asking for that are those hard skills, right? You're here. So I think education is wonderful. So you made a good decision to be here. You're going to get the credential, assuming that you do what you're supposed to do. How do you tell the difference between you and you? And I just pit them against each other at that moment. That makes them a little competitive. They're like, oh, well, I have a higher GPA, or I've done all these internships. And I say, okay, all things equal, how will I pick between you? And they say, well, I don't know. That's where soft skills come in at. If you can't articulate what you've done, how do I know as your hiring manager that I want to hire you, right? That goes back to communication. If you are not on time, punctuality is it's a tiny thing, but you have to be punctual so that I know that I can count on you. I'm hiring you to do a job. That means I'm going to trust you to do your job. Autonomy is part of that. If I can't see that in how you act or how you interview, will I hire you? And they're like, well, no, of course not. There you go. Back to those soft skills.
I like it. That's great. What is one or two things that students can do outside of the classroom to work on building their soft skills?
I say emotional intelligence is a big one, right? So just being emotionally aware. I explain it to students like, have any of you ever felt some kind of way, right? Using their verbiage. You feel some type of way? That's emotional intelligence. Trying to figure out why you feel some type of way. How do we perfect that? How do we get better at that? Really critical thinking, understanding, recapping things, talking to other people that you trust, talking to people with different perspectives so that you can see multiple sides of a situation. That's how you get better.
Great. All right, I have one last question here.
Okay.
How do you go about working with students who are at different grade levels? Seniors will have more experience and more deadlines versus a freshman or a sophomore.
Yep, that is true. So I will adjust based on, I teach a lot of classes that have a wide variety of majors and a wide variety of education levels. So usually if a student needs, I will try to mix the group. So I try to make sure that there is representation from everybody as possible in a group. So I won't have like an all male group, or I won't have an all female group, just to make sure that they're getting exposure to a different baseline perspective from a gender perspective. For the different levels, I will change how it's required. So if I'm doing a class that has all freshmen, I would do the time management presentation versus a class with all seniors. One of my groups would be doing the time management presentation. And then I would follow up with that just in case they didn't hit all the points that I want them to hit. So putting a little bit more responsibility on them as they are higher in their matriculation is one way that I address it. Starter articles is another way. So if I'm requiring students to present on something like giving good presentations, I'll give them starter articles versus saying, hey, this is what you're required to do. These are your outlines. This is the rubric. Now you go forth and do it. I'll get them started with their research.
Great. Well, Jen, as always, this has been phenomenal. I want to read just one comment that just came through from Chanel. Dr. Jen, you are the professor that I needed when I was in school. I know that your students just love you.
Thank
I
you.
feel the same way.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I can just tell you have a lot of heart in this. We're so lucky to be able to work with you. So thank you so much. I'll let you hop off. And
thank you. Have a good one, everyone.
All right. Well, I want to thank all of you for your participation so far in the chats. It's been amazing. And we have selected our first winner for a $50 gift card for participating in the chat. And that winner is Andrew Cardillo. So congratulations. Our team will reach out and contact you. I also want to remind you, don't forget to post on social media. Use the hashtag StukentDS23, and that will get you noticed and eligible for the other giveaways that we're doing through that. Okay, now, as we're getting ready for our next speaker, I want to show you a quick video about our consumer behavior courseware and SimTernship that highlights the importance of career skills. As a reminder, as a special gift to everyone attending today, we're going to offer you free instructor access to this courseware or any of our courseware. With the instructor access, you'll be able to preview the entire courseware, including lesson plans, assignments, lecture slides, syllabus, and more. So go ahead and click on the link right now as you watch the video.
Teach your students to build compelling marketing campaigns with the Consumer Behavior Bundle from Stukent. This bundle provides you with two powerful educational resources, the Consumer Behavior Courseware and the Stukent Consumer Behavior SimTernship. The Consumer Behavior Courseware was developed by Radhika Duggal, a professor of marketing at New York University and chief marketing officer for a financial tech company. Radhika brings decades of marketing experience to her courseware, merging up-to-date psychology with real-world marketing strategies, giving your students the insight they need to understand consumer needs and motivations, shape brand perceptions, and influence buyer decisions. To save you prep time, the courseware includes a full suite of resources for educators, such as detailed lesson plans, auto-graded quizzes, video resources, and lecture slide decks. The accompanying Student Consumer Behavior SimTernship, or Simulated Internship, immerses your students in the role of a brand marketer for 𝐕 Supply Co., a simulated e-commerce retailer. Over the course of 7 rounds, your students will conduct market research to help 𝐕 rebrand a struggling product line. Your students will select market segments, purchase qualitative and quantitative research, and create surveys to build a perfect customer persona, and create campaigns and allocate ad spend to reshape customers' perceptions of the brand. The Consumer Behavior Bundle integrates with popular LMS platforms, and with Stukent's instructor portal, you can access your courseware, review your students' results, and manage your course options all in one place. To see how the Consumer Behavior Bundle can make it easier to run an engaging, effective course, schedule a walkthrough with one of our course consultants today, and let us show you how easy it is to stay current with Stukent.
Our next session will be led by Rebecca Cooney, a scholarly associate professor with more than 26 years of experience in professional communication. She serves as the director of Murrow Online Programs and as a co-investigator for the Center of Excellence in Natural Product-Drug Interaction Research. In 2022, Rebecca was selected as a Les Smith Distinguished Professor and a PH Digital Fellow with the Knight Foundation. Previously, she was the recipient of the President's Distinguished Teaching Award for Career Track Faculty, the Oaks Award for Innovation in Teaching, and she received the Scripps Howard Visiting Professor in Social Media and Planck Center Education Fellow Awards. She is professionally certified in learning experience design. So, without further ado, please welcome Rebecca Cooney to the stage.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome. We're going to get right into it. I'm excited to see the Consumer Behavior SimTernship. That's one of the ones that we're talking about today. So the focus of today's session is Stukent internships and how they can benefit your classroom by enhancing learning experiences for your students. So I'm going to talk about my experience and approach with internships and how they have provided my students with immersive, hands-on experiences that engage them in active learning. But before we begin, let's do a couple of quick polls. So we're going to pop over to the polls here. Are they coming through? There we go. Question number 1 is, do you currently use internships in your curriculum? A simple yes or no really helps me here. Okay. Interesting. Great. In a way, that's great because I think I'll be educating you a bit today on the value of internships. And then go ahead when you're ready. I know we've got a few more people. The second poll. For those that are using internships, how would you characterize your overall approach? Are you pretty hands-on, like real into it, high level of coaching versus letting the students kind of do their own thing and self-pace in a way, obviously with deadlines, or mix of both? Interesting. Okay. I'm asking these questions to get a gauge from the group about the current integration of internships and curriculum, as well as a better understanding of your current approach to teaching. Perfect. You can share the results, Jacob. Okay, so what I'm seeing is we've got about 71% of the group that answered not using internships currently, and it's a real split. Split on faculty-led versus student-led versus mix of both. We got a 3-way on that. Okay, that helps me so much. Thank you. So here is a roadmap for, I'm not advancing my slides.
Hey, Rebecca, you accidentally kicked yourself off stage when you advanced your slides. Just hop back on.
Am I back?
You're back on.
Sorry about that. Should I start at the beginning of the roadmap here? I apologize. Sorry. This is our agenda for today. And what we're going to talk about is about a 45-minute interactive session. Please be sure to put your comments in the chat. I do have a couple of prompts as well to keep the conversation lively and moving forward. But just so we're all on the same page, I'm going to go ahead and begin with a brief orientation on internships with a high-level overview of what they are and what Stukent offers. Next, we're going to spend some time on a proven model that I follow and my approach of integrating internships into curriculum for both in-person and online courses. And that's a 4-step process. And then I'm going to bring things full circle with a couple of wrap-ups, some reminders, some resources, and we'll close it out with an open Q&A in the last 5 minutes or so. All right, here we go. And I'm multitasking, and I don't want to lose. If I hover, here we go. Okay, here we are. So as Stukent says, internships are meant to augment the classic internships, not replace it. They provide students with broader, more standardized access to hands-on education. That's from their website. And as noted by developments in business simulation and experiential learning, in-curriculum simulations provide structure so students take initiative and are accountable for results. They promote critical thinking and analysis, synthesis of information and reflection. They deliver personal learning results that create future learning opportunities and identify real-life principles. And they help students apply lessons learned to other situations. Here we go. This is a lineup of the current internships that are offered by Stukent. I wanted to give you this for context and let you know that I am currently using the social media marketing internship in an online graduate course and the consumer behavior internship that was just featured in the video in an in-person undergraduate course. And this fall, I'm going to be integrating the advertising internship in a course, another in-person undergraduate course that's all graduating seniors. So I'm very excited to be doing it. So internships have transformed my classroom experience, definitely for my students. Partnered with the e-textbook and chapter quizzes, video case studies, interactive class discussions and assignments and activities, my classes not only inform and prepare these students in their academic and professional pathways, the combination of activities both enlightens and ignites them. And it inspires them for stronger attendance, big talking point on my campus these days, engagement, and then community among peers. Just a second here. So here is this process that I'm going to talk about today for the next 25 minutes or so. And this is the process that I recommend when integrating internships into curriculum. It's a 4-step process that I developed over time, and it begins with preparing yourself as the educator and facilitator of this internship. Next is planning your lesson and how this internship fits into your curriculum. Then comes the actual implementation of this internship and making decisions about your level of involvement in the student experience. And then finally, we'll talk about how to create a sense of community as students work through each round. And I'm paying attention to the chat just a little bit. Wonderful comments coming through. Appreciate that. You'll have a chance to also give some feedback here in a second. So I'm going to begin with preparing yourself as an educator and facilitator of the in-curriculum internship. I first experienced internships a couple of falls ago when I took over a class that a colleague created. It was my first experience working with in-curriculum simulations, and I will admit, first to admit, that I did not do my diligence as an educator in preparing to teach a class that included a simulation component. I reviewed the instructor's guide, I skimmed the rounds, I familiarized myself with the content, but I missed a really, really critical step. I did not experience the simulation from the lens of a student. And wow, it was a really challenging semester. Students had questions at each round, and because I didn't experience it fully myself, I had no confidence in my ability to coach or support them. I relied heavily on my amazing Stukent rep to help me navigate and answer questions. But as someone who prides herself on being ahead of the game and prepared for what's happening around me, it was incredibly unsettling. So given my teaching load and other responsibilities, I was never able to make the necessary time to backtrack and actually complete the simulation myself. So I was a stronger resource for students. I did not want to have that feeling again. So I carved out time during a holiday break and I experienced the simulation as a student. Big win. So I used the student handbook. I downloaded resources. I reviewed all the videos. I navigated through the sections of each round bit by bit. I read the memos. I engaged in the chat. I worked through scenarios and I got a grade just like a student would. Because I wanted to also do a better job leading the simulation experience in the live classroom, I took it one step further and I created slide decks in tandem with my experience as I went through each round. I used a combination of screenshots, text, and links to put these together. All of them are Stukent content. It's just repurposed into a way that helps me teach that a little bit stronger. And these were also shared with the students at each round. And I just want to note when I get into this that the creation of the decks is not essential. It was just something that I felt that I needed to do as part of my teaching style. I'm going to give you an example of a slide deck in just a second, and try to pay attention to the chat as well to make sure we're all on the same page here. So this is just an example, and I think our folks at Stukent are going to share maybe a link in the chat. So if you want to pop out and look at these Look at this example. This is round 4 of the social media simternship. It has 12 rounds. I begin with an overview of the simulation deck, and then I follow it up with individual decks for each round. Simternships are incredibly formulaic with features like videos, inbox, notifications, assignments, and resources. So once students find their rhythm, it becomes very predictable and more comfortable for everybody. I acknowledge, I just wanted for the group out here, I acknowledge that this is a lot of work for instructors to create decks like this. And I think Stukent's aware of this as a potential value add going forward, as we all have experienced their chapter quizzes and their and the chapter decks. So hopefully this will be something that is considered as a future resource for our educators here experiencing the simternships. So far, I have just created and shared the decks with students. For in-person classes, this works fantastic. For online courses, it would be a value add if I included a script for the instructor in the event they wanted to record a walkthrough of the materials. I share these decks in the course space as part of an assignment write-up, and they have been incredibly well received by students. They are my go-to, really valuable for them. And by experiencing the simternship from the lens of a student, you will set yourself up for success. You will be more confident in the material and much stronger resource for your students. So let's take just a beat here before I move on. I want to give you a chance to give some commentary here. The second phase I'm going to talk about is lesson planning, but I want to pause and just ask you about your thoughts about going through simternship from the lens of a student. Is it something that you've done yourself or would find valuable? And if you haven't gone through simternships yourself, have you found limitations or barriers when it comes to coaching? I'm just curious about anyone's experience who's out there. Definitely valuable to go through the simulation yourself. Yes, Tammy, you definitely want to go through it as a student. It's when I coach my peer faculty who want to do the simternships and curriculum, I say first thing you do is you go through it as a student. Very helpful. Yes. Done the simulation itself, looked at student results. Great, Virginie. Wonderful. Okay, excellent, thank you. I'll go ahead and move forward. All right, let's talk about continuing on in our process. This is number 2, planning your lesson. So once you've experienced the simternship, and depending on if you are also using the accompanying textbook quizzes, video case studies, etc., you will be better positioned to determine how you want to integrate the simternship into your curriculum. There are a few things to consider, so let's just kind of work through them. The first one is, how does the simternship fit into your curriculum? Do you want to start right away or delay a couple of weeks? One issue that I found is that the simternship tasks mostly align with the textbook chapters, but sometimes students are asked to complete tasks in the simternship that they have not yet been exposed to in the readings. So it's not necessarily a barrier, but it's definitely something to be mindful of. So I absolutely kind of map, I'm paying attention to where things are in the chapter against the simulation round. And again, by experiencing the simulation, you have a much better feel for that connection. Another consideration, how much do you as the instructor want to be involved in the coaching of the simternship experience? For example, do you want to designate class time to go through rounds and actively work through the materials with the students, or do you prefer that the students go through it on their own and then ask questions as they come up? This decision just makes a big difference in how much class time you want to devote to navigating the content. And I'm just, again, peeking over at the chat, and these are all great comments. Keep them coming. Another thing to consider is the pacing. So each simternship comes with recommendations for pacing, but an instructor may want to make adjustments based on other materials that you're trying to cover in your course. I choose to run the rounds in succession versus broken up. I've done it both ways and found that running them in succession is better for the students and creates a more organic flow for how the internships are integrated into the curriculum. In one class, my students complete the simulations over 7 rounds in 7 weeks. And in another class, they complete the blocks they complete them in blocks of 3 rounds at a time across 5 lessons. And that's because the social media internship is round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They all kind of block together, and that's just how it's designed. My main recommendation is to follow the guidelines that are provided by Stukent and to set up timing so that students cannot work ahead. You don't want them working ahead. That's particularly important if you want to build community and engagement as part of the experience. So I'm just going to pop over here. More comments on running the importance of experiencing the simulation. Yeah, definitely run them again as they get updated. If you've experienced the social media internship, what it was 2 years ago to what it is today is very, very, very different. Mapping the rounds, yes, very smart to do that. Great, simulation round due after the quiz. Thank you, Lisa. That's a great tip. Excellent. Really appreciate that, Brady. Yes, common phrase when I hear working with, I wish I would have had this when I was a student is a common phrase. I believe that, Brady. And then Joy, creating a post-round reflection that helps them demonstrate their understanding and helps them coach. Excellent. I also do reflections. Before I enter into the next phase of a round, I'm spending some quality time with them to reflect what they learned, what they were challenged by. I do that as well. Okay, so let's go on. I'm just multitasking just a little bit here. There we go. The third one on my process here is called, I'm calling nurturing and teaching. So regardless of your decision to be actively engaged in walking your students through each round versus adopting more of a self-regulated model for students, as an instructor, you will want to engage in some level of nurturing and teaching throughout this internship experience. For my in-person undergraduate course, I decided to carve time in my lesson plan to walk through the rounds with the students. I do not give them the answers per se, but instead, I let them lead the discussion and take action along the way. They have the option to either actively go through the simulation round with me during class, or they can just listen and take notes. Most choose to listen and take notes and then do the simulation themselves on their own later. I use a dummy account to go through each round as a student live so that when I'm showing them is also what they will experience. I begin with my slide deck as an overview and intro to the round, and then I shift over to the live simulation for the walkthrough. I have them download materials along the way. I engage in the inbox chat. I take action with the assignments, and together we review the data sets, the annual review materials, and spend down the budget. I let them lead everything. I'm just driving, but I let them lead it so that they can see the mistakes and ways to improve. It gives me an opportunity also to reinforce teaching topics of the week, introduce terminology, and show them how to actually review and assess data. And it's just transformed how I teach these in my classes. In my online graduate course, I provide the slide decks, but essentially I'm hands-off as a coach. I ask them to use my slide decks and Stukent resources to self-navigate through each round and encourage them to reach out and ask questions as they come up. I think both work. The guided is more fun, and the guided is a much more active learning experience. But both approaches work well, and it really comes down to instructor preference and how much time they want to devote to coaching and teaching this aspect of the experience. Okay, so I'm going to do another prompt here. So let's go ahead, and I'm just curious from the group, what are some thoughts about your role as instructor and coach in this internship experience? I'm curious about whether or not you think it's better to be active and high touch, or do you think students are better served in a self-regulated model? I'm just curious what you think. whether or not you've done internships yet, if you had to do it today, do you think you would do it as an active coaching model, or do you think you would go lean more into the self-paced? Any thoughts from the group? Yes, Gail. Or I'm sorry, Garrett, excuse me. Letting students make mistakes and understand them, learning from those mistakes really helps them connect and improve. I happen to be able to work in table teams, my particular classroom setup. And so I will give them discussion prompts and activities and say, so talk about it amongst your group, share out loud, and then we're going to go through it together. So I'm able to really make it interactive and participatory in that way. Yes, and agree, Benton, the higher level of the course, the more hands-off. I feel you on that. I do. Yeah, Barbara, different students benefit from different teaching, but I will tell you, when they know it's sim day with Rebecca, my attendance real high. Yeah. Good, Lisa. Allowing the critical thinking. It's a balance. I really support the balance. Yes, vulnerable enough. Oh, you should see when I get into the red, they go, ooh, what'd she do? It's really fun. It's really fun. Sim day with Rebecca, Stu, let's do it. This is great. Thank you. Wonderful comments. So let's go ahead and do this fourth one. All right. So my fourth and final process here. This is about building community. For my classes, it happened really organically. I was teaching the social media simternship to an online graduate course and noticed that they had a ton of questions and they were filling up my e-box. They were just hitting up my e-box and it was going nuts. So I said, I want a mechanism to answer these questions, but not just for the student who asked the question, but to benefit the entire group. So I did something really simple. I created the social media simulation support group, and it's in Canvas, and it's just a discussion forum thread. Students were immediately drawn to this community space and began sharing ideas, tricks, tips, resources. They want to know who's in second place and how they got there. They want to know what did you do for your influencer strategy and influencer X, and what is he or she doing and how do you beat them? And they're just sharing. Very, very active in the community. And competitive by nature, they just want to know everything about how that person's in first place and second place, and they don't see it's redacted, of course, so they don't know who's in first place or second place, but they want to know their tips, they want to know their tricks. And it also really helps them interpret different data set ideas, and it just builds this amazing community where they're helping each other and sharing with each other and supporting one another. I had one that even did offline Zoom meetups with students to help them navigate, and I thought that was really fantastic. And I have another one who created a series of YouTube videos for round 7 through 9 on the social media internship, if anyone's been through it. And her videos have been very popular, and she just talks about how she's navigating them, because those 3 rounds are hard and students always falter on them. So the support group is fantastic. All right, I'm going to keep going here. Love the support group. I'm a big fan. So let's kind of bring a little bit full circle here. Just a little recap on what we've discussed. So if you're going to integrate internships into your curriculum, you will set yourself up for success if you experience the internship from the lens of a student. Top number 1 thing to do. After you've experienced this internship, you will be poised to determine how it fits in your curriculum. It is at this stage that you should also determine how much you want to be involved in the coaching of the experience itself, as well as how you want to set the pacing in the distribution of the internship content. Once you've decided on your approach, you can actively engage in the nurturing and teaching of the content, and this can be very high touch and interactive, or more passive and self-regulated by the students themselves. The final step in this process is to create a space so students can build community around their respective internship experiences. And it's a place for self-advocacy, sharing, and peer mentoring. It greatly reduces stress, and it's fun. They enjoy it. And as a takeaway for this session, I think it's in your handouts. If you pop over to the handouts, I've created a little handout designed to help you navigate this process yourself and make decisions about how you want to approach and integrate 𝐻IMternships into curriculum. If you pop it there, there's both my slides, you'll have access to those, as well as just a little handout, just a quick infographic really, that'll help you use that as a navigation tool. Okay, so I think we're a little early, but that brings us to Q&A. Okay, so let's see here. Do I have grad students that complete the simulation as undergrads? Oh, interesting, Holly. No, not that I know of. Okay, so here's something I will say, Holly. I happen to be in a wonderful group of peer faculty who speak to each other. So we have been really, really careful that there is no overlap on our 𝐻IMternships, so that our students in the undergraduate and graduate are not experiencing the same 𝐻IMternships. So I would say, generally speaking, they wouldn't find it to be repetitive, because every 𝐻IMternship is so different from one to the next. So I think it's a pretty safe bet.
Okay, Rebecca, thank you so much. We love hearing all the different ways our instructors integrate simulations into their classroom. I want to give everyone a chance. We have logged some questions that you've already posted, but I want to give everyone a chance to go ahead and type in some questions right now. But while we're waiting for that in the chat, did you know that each month Stukent highlights a standout higher education professor who uses our products in the classroom and exemplifies our core values? Well, I'm excited to share that earlier this week, Rebecca Cooney was awarded the Stukent Professor of the Month for April 2023. So congratulations, Rebecca.
Such an honor.
When I saw that, I was like, I have to announce that.
You.
So
very nice.
Good job. Yeah, and if you want to connect with Rebecca, we'll throw a link up for that. Yeah, so let me get to some of the questions that we have. What made you choose Stukent 𝐻IMternships over other options?
Well, my original invitation to the table was actually because another professor designed a class that I was assigned to teach, and he chose to put the 𝐻IMternship in, and so it was immediate. If I'm honest, I've been hesitant to do 𝐻IMternships, or not just 𝐻IMternships, simulations in general, whether it be from Stukent or Harvard Business or other tools, mostly just out of time to devote to orient myself on the experience and wanting to be a good coach and good leader for my students. And so it's mostly been a bandwidth problem, if I'm honest, that of having the time to devote to really investigate and implement. So when it was put upon me to do this internship, I had to sort of embrace it. And then after I experienced it myself, I found it very valuable. And now I really want to do simulations as much as possible in my curriculum. I find that real world application, the real data, I think that's the biggest challenge, at least in my world, of getting real data for students to look at that's in context of the subject matter that I'm teaching. I really think it's important for them to see the data, interpret the data, and then make decisions based on that data. And I find that the 𝐻IMternships are by far the best way to do that.
Great. Benton asked, how do you handle students who are overly competitive and don't want to discuss the simulation in class?
So it depends on the 𝐻IMternship that you're using. So the social media simulation does have that competitive ranking system. Others do not. So I have found that my graduate students love the competitive spirit. And if they don't want to participate in the community piece, in the discussion forum, it's not mandated, it's not graded, it's just an open forum. It's my support group. I just encourage them to participate. So it's very, very much optional, and they can keep quiet. In my other internship that's the undergraduate in-person, it does not have a ranking. So that competitive edge isn't there. But I suppose if students were feeling competitive, I would have to think about that. It's a really good question. If the internship I was using did have the ranking system, I would probably do what one of my colleagues does, which is she creates trivia night model for quizzes with Stukent quizzes, actually. And she has an award system, and she has prizes. She does the whole thing. So I'd probably build that in. Yeah, it's fun.
Nice. Okay. How does this internship support and complement other aspects of your course?
It's a huge value add. What I see it as is that it takes the content that you are teaching and brings it to life. And in tandem, you're also probably doing some level of case study work. You're doing in-class activities. You're giving them quizzes. You're giving them assignments, both individual and group. And I just see this internship as like validating, like really validating all the things that they're learning and reinforcing the readings. And it really, to me, when you think about how, I don't know what's happening on your campuses, but we're heavily encouraged to do open education resources and not force students into purchasing educational products. And I understand that, and I absolutely respect that as a mission. But what I would say is that if you're going to use a textbook and you're going to use materials and you're going to charge them for it, let's make sure that they're getting so much out of it and that it is immediately applicable to the work that they're doing and the lessons that they're learning. And so I feel a lot better having a paid textbook that also has quizzes, video case studies, assignments, interactive discussion, simulation. They're getting this really wonderful suite of valuable learning materials, and they're getting their money's worth when they do that.
Great. Would you recommend using a internship at the beginning, middle, or end of the course?
So I started one of them because it's 12 rounds. The social media sim, I almost we are on 15-week. I almost have to do it pretty early days. I think I give them a week of a grace period and then we start it. I also, just from my understanding of like the way that students' brains connect to material, I'm very formulaic in the way I design my lessons as well. So I want it to be chapter 1, round 1, week 1, chapter 2, round 2, week 2. I like to keep it really, really clean if possible. So sometimes I find that starting at the very beginning, it just keeps them on track where they're not trying to remember chapter 3 and round 7. You know, so just for their ways for their brain to connect to the material. But I think it doesn't really matter. I believe that pushing it out a couple of weeks might be advantageous as they're getting sort of oriented and comfortable in the course material before you introduce the simulation. I would say it's really up to you, and it's how you want to build it in as part of your overall suite of materials that you are covering in the course.
Okay, great. What has been the biggest benefit that you've noticed by using this internship in the class?
Students come up to me and talk about it. Students get excited when they review the data and know what they're looking at. I have had students tell me that it has prepared them for job interviews because they can use the proper language. It gives them the vocabulary that they need to talk about how they have applied what they've learned. There's pride in getting into the green, if you know what I'm talking about, in the green. There is, it's highly rewarding, is what I'm hearing from all of my students.
Great. You mentioned earlier that you made the mistake of not going through this internship from the student perspective. Are there any other rookie mistakes that you would want to share that you made?
Another rookie mistake would be not looking at the resources and data sets that are provided throughout this internship. There are a number of downloads that everyone is asked to do or view, and they're in the ones that I'm thinking of, they're usually annual reports, or they're like defining how you can use social media, the different types of social media posts, vocabulary, data sets. And so one of my other early rookie mistakes was that I sort of skimmed over the resources versus actually looking at them, interpreting them myself, and understanding what they're trying to do as far as how they connect to the material in the internship itself. So it's not just skimming through and click, click, click. It's also digesting and paying attention to the material so that you can interpret that for the students when you get questions or if you run it live in the classroom.
Great. So one last question that we have is from Lindsay. Do you always share the rankings with your students?
I don't. So maybe somebody else from Stukent can help me out. They are able to see where they rank. They don't see the peers' names, but they actually can see it on their own. So I don't think I have to tell them. I think they are able to see that. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us today and for taking the time to be with us. And congratulations once again on your Professor of the Month Award.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we'll see you then. Thank you. Okay, so if you would like to connect with Rebecca, go ahead and click the link that was in the chat and you can get connected with her. Now it's time to announce the second winner, the $50 gift card for most engagement in the chat. That winner is Barbara Burke. So Barbara, I've seen your name pop up a lot. Thanks for commenting and congratulations. Our team will reach out and get with you. Okay. I think we have another winner for social media for posting. Let's see. Oh, actually, I'm off on that. Never mind. I'm skipping ahead. But before we begin our last speaker and last presentation, I want to show you just a quick video of our new brand management courseware and SimTernship. As a reminder, just for attending today's event, we're going to give everyone in attendance free access to any one of our simulations or courseware. Free instructor access, that is. So with that instructor access, you'll be able to preview the entire courseware, the simulation, you'll be able to check out the lesson plans, the assignments, lecture slides, and everything else. So go ahead and click that, and then we're going to start the video to check it out.
Teach students to create value for customers and companies with the brand management courseware and simulation bundle from Stukent. The all-new brand management and strategy courseware gives you robust, ready-made tools to help students define brand positioning and its strategic importance, identify ways that brand identity supports businesses, and understand how brands foster value. This courseware was developed by Terry Sullivan, a professor of business and communications at Webster University. With his years of experience as a marketing consultant and executive, Terry brings a wealth of branding experience into your classroom. Terry has also created a full suite of resources for educators, including detailed lesson plans, lecture slide decks, and engaging video content that save you valuable prep time. You can pair this insightful courseware with Stukent's immersive brand management simulation, which allows your students to practice key branding skills in a safe, low-risk environment. The Brand Management Bundle integrates with popular LMS platforms and features the Stukent Instructor Portal, which allows you to manage your courses and settings and review your students' results in one place. To see how Stukent's Brand Management Bundle can help you build a better branding curriculum, schedule a walkthrough with one of our course consultants today, and be sure to stay current with Stukent.
Our final speaker of the day will be Terry Sullivan, expert marketer, professor, and Stukent author. Terry has more than 30 years of experience as a corporate executive, entrepreneur, and consultant. Terry is the founder and president of Strategic Glue, a marketing consultancy in St. Louis, Missouri. As an assistant and adjunct professor in the School of Communications and the School of Business at Webster University, Terry has 14 years of higher education experience and is the author of 2 Stukent courseware titles, Marketing Management Today and Brand Management and Strategy. Please join me in welcoming Terry Sullivan to the stage.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I appreciate you all taking the time to spend your afternoon with me. Paul, I am wondering if you can hear me and see me. And I see my slide deck. That's great. Okay. Well, as that introduction told you a little bit about me, it looked awfully professional, and I didn't recognize myself, unfortunately, but that's what happens when you get old. You think you look a lot younger than you do. So as people are kind of rolling in, what I'd like to do to get started is I would like to ask you, what do you teach? Where do you teach? And are you a full-time faculty member or are you an adjunct? So just trying to get an idea here of our audience. So what do you teach? Where do you teach? And are you full-time or an adjunct? Okay, seeing a few responses here. And I really appreciate everybody sitting in on Cinco de Mayo on a Friday afternoon, spending your time with me. Hopefully it will be an interesting session. Okay. All right, so I will continue to move on. So as the intro stated, my name is Terry Sullivan. I'm president of Strategic Glue, a marketing consultancy here in St. Louis. I have actually 35 years of business experience, which is much to my own chagrin, how quickly it goes. I've been a assistant or adjunct faculty for 14 years. I was a full-time faculty member at Webster University. I have since gone to be an adjunct to return to business full-time. So in that, over the years, have been an entrepreneur, an executive, a consultant, professor, author, and have had just so many, I think, experiences and insights with students as you all have. But certainly in terms of what students are facing in today's job market and how we can make a resume-ready classroom is kind of a subject near and dear to my heart, so I hope it is for you as well. These are a few of the brands that I've worked with over the years. More just, I guess, a credibility thing, but it's always interesting to look back and see, all the companies that you've had an opportunity to work with. As mentioned in the intro video, Stukent has been graceful enough to allow me to write 2 courseware titles, most recently brand management and strategy, and then back in 2021, marketing management today. I also have a small business book that I'm releasing in October. Again, a marketing marketing book for small business. And the resume ready classroom really matters, I think, more so today than probably ever, because, I don't know how many of you have entered the job market or attempted to enter the job market in recent history, but it is really tough. Getting a quote unquote real job is scary. The job market has probably been tougher than it's ever been. And what's interesting is, our unemployment rate is really low, but the way it works, the things that everyone is looking for, very tough, continually changing. The resume and hiring process is absolutely, completely broken, in my opinion, and I'm certainly not alone in that. What our students have to go through in terms of sort of getting the resume out into the abyss is tough. And what employers are looking for today, in many cases, I think is awfully challenging, if not unrealistic, especially for newbies. So within that, rejection in and of itself is obviously difficult, but when you never hear anything, that's always concerning and stressful. But in many cases, a lot of people get ghosted. They may never hear from anybody. They may do an interview and they never hear anything. And so, a lot of the times these students are left in a place where, they really don't know what to think, what's working, what's not working. And then on top of that, you know, the changing environment to remote/hybrid work environments is certainly stressful for newbies as well. So, you know, I have to tell you that this image right here of the person that's looks pretty distressed, I think that's emblematic of a lot of our students. But I can tell you, I actually returned to corporate America for about a year and 3 or 4 months. Recently, I had an opportunity come up, and, you know, I do consulting, and this was sort of an outgrowth of a consulting engagement. And I have to tell you, after, you know, going through the process of actually getting the job and being on the job for a week or two, that's how I felt and probably how I looked. So, you know, for somebody who's been around the block a few times, you know, if I'm feeling that way, you know, I can imagine how many of our younger students are feeling. So, quick look at a resume. This was pulled from Indeed. And the reason I like to highlight this is to kind of underscore what the students are facing. So this is for an entry-level marketing specialist position. It has the requisite, you know, requirements, responsibilities, which are pretty robust, I guess I would say. But then in addition, they're looking for, you know, in this case, this is a marketing position, somebody who's Google AdWords certified. They're proficient in Google Analytics and Facebook Insights, familiar or proficient in Facebook Business Manager. And so the list kind of goes on and on. And, you know, again, it really underscores how much employers are looking for and what our students are facing that often, you know, augments what we're actually teaching in our courses. So those are some of the things that we'll cover in a minute. What I do know for sure at this point is I think most students are pretty shell-shocked by the whole job process. I keep in touch with a lot of former students, ones who've been out in the job market for a while, as well as new ones, and, you know, the feedback is continually the same. And so what I think we can do is do more to prepare them, instill confidence in them, and help sort of allay their fears and stress that they're experiencing, you know, as they go through it. Skills change quickly. Over 30% of the skills required 3 years ago will soon be irrelevant, according to Gartner. You know, just look at the news regarding AI and ChatGPT. You know, AI has been around a long time, but we have never seen, I think, such a quick, potentially seismic shift. And I know it's going to impact, obviously, the way that we teach. It's going to impact education greatly if it hasn't already. But certainly, many jobs are going to be affected by it. And it's just going to require a different way of looking at it to say, how do we utilize this technology to better prepare our students as they go out into the job market? I continually scour headlines, LinkedIn, what have you, regarding, you know, articles as it relates to, sorry about that. I just had a strange thing happen on my computer. You know, articles about skills, coping, you know, expectations for graduates who are entering the job market. LinkedIn has been a great source for Harvard Business Review articles. You can see, you know, some of them here, you know, coming to the realization that you might not get your dream job. And if you do, what might that look like? What students need to know to succeed in the corporate world. Does higher education still prepare people for jobs? I think it does. I'm a Gen Zer who was unprepared for life after college. Here are 5 things I wish I knew before graduation. So a lot out there in the news. Hopefully the students are reading this. Hopefully it's not scaring them off, but I think we can also help temper that reality for them. This was a Georgetown University study asking what soft skills employers want, and we're going to talk about soft skills in a minute. But, you know, leadership, communications, problem solving, and complex thinking. This is a lot of what hopefully we're all building into our classes. but are some of the things that, you know, aren't necessarily, you know, part of the curriculum by design. You know, those things fall in, but I think in many cases we need to be, you know, more intentional about the soft skills. This is a CNBC article that I just saw the other day. 93% of employers want to see soft skills, and you can see the top 8 that are listed in jobs out online: communication skills, time management, project management, what have you. And just as a funny aside to this, in 2006, I got my master's degree in international business, and my thesis was actually on empathy as a strategy for entering foreign global markets. And at the time, I was actually discouraged from doing that because empathy was a soft skill and I should focus more on the hard skills. And so naturally, I didn't heed that advice, but that was from the director of the program. And at that time, you know, that wasn't that long ago. And it's like, to think that soft skills were, I don't want to say derided, but probably not given the emphasis that hard skills, you know, were. And we're seeing that more and more. LinkedIn, the news, you know, go look at any job descriptions and you're going to see more and more soft skills listed in the requirements. I've included some quotes from past students that I will kind of pepper throughout, you know, this discussion. And I'm having a hard time seeing my screen because I'm seeing a pop-up to the brand management bundle. So Paul or Jacob, if you can chat with me and tell me how to remove this, that would be great. So on the next slide, I'm going to show you a list of 24 different items. These are a list of what I have decided to, not decided, but, you know, a list that I came up with after talking to many students, many other professionals of, okay, what are the pertinent resume ready skills? So what I'd like you to do is look at this list of 24 items and type in the top 2 or 3 that you think are really pertinent to your students. So let's give everybody a minute to chime in. And okay, we're seeing teamwork, open-mindedness, professional development, training, soft skills, persist. Okay. Navigating ambiguity. Yes, that's one of my favorites. Teamwork, lifelong learning. Okay. Working independently. Teamwork, soft skills. Okay, great. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, you know, let's kind of have a collaborative discussion. I'm going to highlight my top 10 based on the responses that I heard from students and other professionals, as well as a couple that I think are top 10. And then we'll open it up for discussion at the end here. So I appreciate everybody taking a minute to put in their top 2 or 3. Okay. All right. So let me get to the next screen. So ambiguity. This is something that I have tried to incorporate in all my classes ever since I began teaching, because having been in the corporate world, in the consulting world, a small business owner, ambiguity is kind of my life story. And I don't think it's that it's unique to me. And what I would always tell students is, look, you have to be comfortable with the unknown, because nobody's going to stand over you and tell you exactly how to do something. And so this sign that you're seeing on the right is actually a sign on my desk that was made for me by this student. Gina Reeves graduated in 2020, and I get comments to this day from students that I've had, you know, 5-10 years ago about ambiguity, because I hammered it so often. And she says, responding to ambiguity, no one had ever mentioned the word until I got to college. One professor in particular helped me prepare for the not so cut and dried direction that I can say every day I have to adapt to in the workplace. And again, I'm not sure how many of you have been out in the quote unquote corporate world. You know, it's just very ambiguous. Anymore, people are expecting, look, here's what we need done. You go figure out how to do it. So ambiguity tops the list for me. I'm glad to see some of you also said the same thing. Soft skills, as we were just saying, this is a list that I found online. There's no shortage of these, but time management, communications, adaptability, all of these are just critical. I added empathy at the bottom because I didn't see it on there. You know, that whole idea of emotional intelligence, which somebody mentioned in the chat, you know, again, the hard skills that they're coming out of school with, particularly our classes, is really important. But the soft skills are becoming as important, if not more important. There's an adage out there that is, you know, hire for attitude, not aptitude, because most skills can be taught. And additionally, from a competitive standpoint, they're going to be up against a lot of students, graduates who have the same skills. Most of the resumes, you know, I've hired a lot of people over the years. A lot of the resumes look the same, right? A cover letter can be a differentiator, for instance, because it shows that they can write, they can communicate. So if all things being equal, from a hard skill perspective, look the same, but this person over here clearly has soft skills that are desirable, and this candidate does not, you know, who do you think is going to get the job? So, and that's something that everybody can cultivate and work on. This is my son, Ben. He and I talk about this all the time, things like this. And, you know, he told me clear communications benefit you in any job, but I also think becoming familiar with communications tools, Slack, Teams, Outlook, you know, how you communicate, what you communicate, and through which medium, if you will, is really important. And these are tools that they're absolutely going to run into. So anytime that we can figure out how to build these into our courses is a win for everybody. Cultural fit. Man, this is a tough one because, you know, there's a lot to be said for what promotes cultural fit. You know, is it something that kind of already exists at a company? Is it being, you know, built from the management? Does it have to do with the team, building it from the ground up, so to speak, from the bottom up? And what I know for sure on this is, you know, cultural fit is a big deal. It's just like in any of your classes when you have, you know, maybe one or a couple students who don't seemingly gel or perhaps change the feeling of the room. Obviously, the same thing in a company, that cultural fit is a huge deal. So being able to hang out with people, to be that sort of positive, you know, vibe in the room is really a good thing. So Tori graduated in 2019, and she said, employers are more than anything looking for people who are a good culture fit and willing to learn. My boss literally told me that they hired me because I was a good culture fit for the team. And industry is learnable, being a good person is not. And I think that is certainly very true. Being a lifelong learner. I'm sure all of you probably say the same thing. And I tell all of my classes, look, you're getting ready to graduate, but you know what? Your learning is just starting, because if you think that because you have your degree now that the education is over, you are sadly mistaken. And you know, I don't want to be that, you know, old rough guy, but it's like, look, it's so true. And oftentimes I'll even have students tell me, they're like, you know, how do you know so much, or how do you keep up with everything? And it's like, I do it because I have to. Between teaching, consulting, advising, all of these things, you know, I'm a voracious reader, and you know, content consumer because I have to be, but I'm also very interested in it. But, you know, just sources like LinkedIn, even Facebook, you know, there are lots of great educational resources out there. HubSpot, Google, we'll talk about that in a minute. All of these companies have amazing learning resources that we can leverage, that we can also point our students to, that are going to help them augment their education. Ben says, nothing good comes without putting in the work. Anyone that tells you mailing it in gets you anywhere is wrong. Embrace the challenges and stay curious. You know, we have this discussion back and forth about how much do you need to do outside of work to keep yourself, you know, adding value, making yourself attractive to either getting the job, being promoted, getting the next job, what have you. And, you know, he's seen firsthand that you can't just sort of stand still. You need to constantly be improving your knowledge and your skill sets. This is one of mine that I add, which I call the CEs, because cleverly all of the words end in CE. But this is, you know, after a long sordid history of finding out for myself, but certainly with people I've hired, with many, many students, that one, they need to accept the fact that this first job might not be exactly what they wanted. It might not be the pay they wanted, but you have to start somewhere. And oddly enough, I was telling somebody the other day, it's probably a blessing that you start not necessarily as high as you want, making as much as you want, because the struggle is where the growth is where, you know, the pain is where the growth is. And, you know, accepting that is really important, because when you accept it, you also have to say, okay, I have to exert some patience in this process, because it is a process. You're not just going from, you know, you started out as a marketing coordinator and now you're CEO. So acceptance and patience, persistence, persisting through the hard times, realizing that, you know what, you might get feedback that's given to you in a way that you don't necessarily like, or maybe it's, you know, said in a manner that isn't great, but you need to persist. Resilience in the face of that adversity, saying, you know what, I'm going to take this constructive criticism, even if it doesn't feel like that, and I'm going to move on. I'm going to keep improving myself and my skills so that I can get to where I want to go. And that's, you know, the whole perseverance thing. It's a marathon, right? And so many times I hear expectations that really probably aren't that realistic for a lot of students coming out. And then they get smacked down pretty hard because they had these incredible expectations. And we certainly want to instill hope and confidence, but there also has to be a dash of reality with that as well. Teamwork. Teamwork is so important. I'm sure all of you probably, you know, assign group work. I know I do, and students hate it. I don't know anybody that's ever admitted that, oh, I like to do the group work. In every case, for the most part, people are going to work on a team of some sort, and you have to learn to not only be a good teammate, but to add value to the team. And a lot of times people don't get to pick their team. They don't get to pick their teammates. Even as hiring managers and, you know, executive people, you know, they can largely build their team, but a lot of times you inherit people. So it's, you know, it kind of it runs across the organization. And being able to be a good team player is super challenging. And, you know, in many cases, it's not in everybody's wheelhouse. Within the context of teamwork is the fact that you're going to have probably a lot of things that the students are going to have a lot of things that they're juggling that they have to prioritize. Rachel Kearns graduated in 2018. She said, I wish I would have been more prepared for prioritizing work and juggling multiple pressing projects at once. I heard this echoed from many professionals that I talked to who said the same thing. You know, it's like they're like, a lot of students we're seeing one thing's in a linear path. They want to do this, then they want to do this, then they want to do this. And it's like, man, it just doesn't usually work that way. You usually have a lot of things coming at you at one time that you are either responsible for or you're partially responsible for. So how do I prioritize what I need to get done now, what I need to get done for tomorrow, but I'm still sort of juggling them simultaneously. Certifications. I'm a huge fan of certifications. I'm sure a lot of you are utilizing these as well. This is an example of Inbound Certified from HubSpot, but there are numerous certifications out there. These are great for a lot of reasons. One, it certainly interjects or injects a realism into our classes, but these are perfect for resume builders. They're great for conversation pieces if they have an internship or a job opportunity. Gina had indicated, you know, she was really surprised at how many jobs were asking for certifications, and she didn't think it would be that big of a difference, but someone reading their resume, it really is. So be responsible for your own learning. You have to apply yourself to get the most out of your learning and experiences. And this goes back to, you know, when they step out of the classroom, I had many students who, you know, it took a long time for them to get jobs. And I'm like, well, while you're doing that, go get a certification in this, go get a certification in this, because that's only going to be really good conversational fodder for you when you do land the opportunity to talk to somebody, but it also is a great resume builder. Employer ready. So this is something that encompasses many things. And what we mean by this, because I took all these responses from people and kind of called it being employer ready. Showing up in a way that you are holding it as, okay, I'm here to learn, I'm here to contribute, I'm intellectually curious, I want to be, you know, a contributing member of the team. I hate to use the term know your place, but I have seen it time and time again in the corporate world, particularly when sometimes overzealous new employees, you know, they want to make their mark, they want to show, you know, what they know. And a lot of times they don't really understand, they're not reading the room, so to speak, to say, okay, kind of understand when you should interject, how you should interject, and when you should just sit back and listen. You know, being an active listener is probably the best thing that all of these students can do. But certainly, you know, if they have the opportunity to add something of value and not just try to get noticed, it's really important. But, you know, all of these things sort of culminate in this idea that they're showing up and they're holding it as an opportunity for them to learn and not just to get the paycheck and move on and not really have to go through the iterations and the processes that help, you know, build out their skill set and become a better employee. Tony Bottini, he was surprised at the fact that understanding what, you know, in this case, Salesforce, HubSpot, Google Analytics, these were different tools that he was exposed to that really helped him in the job market. And he indicated that employers and potential employers were really glad that he had some familiarity with these platforms. Project management. Again, I come from a marketing perspective and a communications perspective where project management is really critical. But I mean, certainly in other, you know, business disciplines, I know project management is just as important. But I always tell my students, look, if you have the propensity to be somebody who is somebody that can handle project management and the nuances within project management, you will likely always have a job, and probably a good job, because it's so necessary. So if our students can walk in and not necessarily own projects, but be able to assimilate and take over the project management of certain projects, that's a big win. And project management is kind of a multifaceted thing, right? Because it takes, you know, time management skills, it takes communication skills, it takes people management skills. keeping people on track, keeping things within budget, all of these things. And, you know, at least from a marketing and communication standpoint, things really break down without great project management. Christina Ingersoll, she was a Marcom major. We did a lot of different marketing plans and things like that. And she said, you know, after being out a couple of years, she had yet to make a marketing plan. What her jobs all consisted of was project management. And I think that's important, kind of a salient point, really, excuse me, that, you know, marketing plans are great. Having to go through the iteration of building plans, thinking strategically, identifying execution, all of that is wonderful. But for the most part, you know, an entry-level job, you're not going to be making plans, and you probably won't for a while. So, but being able to run with project management and sort of help with managing projects is a more likely thing. And hopefully, you know, they get to utilize those marketing plan skills down the road. And finally, work independently. You know, we talked about teamwork, and teamwork is crucial, but even within a team, you have to go figure out how to do your work independently to contribute to the team. And to kind of complicate it even further is this whole, you know, potential of remote work, hybrid remote, you know, environments. And, you know, for a lot of students, that's kind of an environment of ambiguity in and of itself. When somebody's not standing over you, like I've worked from home for 30 years, so I don't ever have any distraction problems. That's not the case for a lot of people. So I think really understanding that, how important it is to work independently, but also at the same time be accountable to your team and contribute to your team or to your boss or whatever it is super important. So I think in closing with this part of the presentation, you know, we're needed now more than ever, but I think not just for the subject matter experience and expertise that we bring, but the mentorship and advising of, you know, here are some of the realities of what's out there, and here are some things that our students can do to really help themselves, you know, not only be attractive candidates, but to navigate the waters in a way that is less stressful and less fearful. So just this is my last slide, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. But, you know, I have a short list here of kind of how I keep it real, or how I attempted to keep it real in my classes. Some of my assignments are kind of intentionally ambiguous, and, you know, I've heard from students, you know, that some of them really aren't happy about it. So, you know, I can think of a couple instances where I assigned a paper or a plan, and they're like, well, how should it be formatted? You know, and I mean, I'll give them the sections or guidelines on the section, you know, but what's the spacing? What's the font size? Is it APA or MLA? You know, all of those things. And honest to God, you know, you're never going to get that in the corporate world. They're not going to go, you know what, will you work on this plan? And I want it formatted APA style, blah, blah, blah. Not saying that that's not important, but, you know, I try to give them loose guidelines and say, go figure it out. I mean, you know, come back with, you know, include these sections, but the rest of it, you know, be it undergrad or grad, you know, make the work reflect where you are. It should be professional. It should be good, you know, and kind of really let them have a hand in it, because that's what they're going to face. Certifications, I mentioned that. I think those are, you know, HubSpot, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, all of these guys have amazing industry learning resources, which can include certifications. Sometimes they just have classes or, you know, lessons, but the certifications obviously are a great resume builder. Case studies. I try to do a lot of case studies, but I try to bring brands that they're fans of, that they're really familiar with, into the equation. So instead of doing sort of the industry standard case studies that are probably around brands and companies that I'm really familiar with or that are plentiful out in the education space. You know, I try to talk to them and say, look, you know, what are some brands that you're really familiar with or that you're fans of? Because I think it ties them to a more sort of relevant and timely thing that they can relate to, which helps them sort of equate that to the real world. At least that's my perspective. Group work and assignments, holy moly. Every time I ask the students, how many of you like group work? They abhor it. And I personally understand that. I don't necessarily like them either from, you know, as a student. But group work is important for a couple reasons, and I'm sure most of you have thought about this, if not all of you. But what I always tell my students, I say, look, if you are that type A person who absolutely wants to get the A, you've done A work your whole life, and you're gonna make it so that no matter what anybody else does, I'm gonna take this thing and run with it. I tell those people, look, you got to back off. And for those of you who shirk back and let everybody else sort of take control, you need to step up. So there's that fine line of everybody needs to contribute to the effort. And that's very indicative of what they're going to experience out in the quote unquote field. Written assignments. Oh man, somebody just said something about a standard test. Too many of my students still think like they're preparing for a standardized test. I have a love-hate relationship with standardized tests. I'm not a great standardized test taker, but you know, it's obviously easier for us in many ways, you know, especially if we have an auto grading, you know, function. But for me, and again, I'm more on the marketing and communication side, but written assignments tell me so much more. It takes me, you know, infinitely longer to grade them, but I can see if they can write through the, you know, they can communicate through the written word. It certainly demonstrates how they think. It forces them, I think, to reflect, to apply, to think critically in a way that a multiple choice test probably does not. And I'm sure I might get some hate for that, but that's my perspective on it. But what I will tell you is writing has never been more important than it is today. And even if it just means internal communications, using email, for instance, tone in an email, communicating through tools like Slack and Teams and Asana and any of these other, you know, platforms that are out there, those are the things that they're going to face. And they need to know how to write and communicate through them. So I think really important. Email and announcements, I use those to communicate with students. And I do so because, one, a lot of them, particularly in the younger generation, they don't necessarily use email. Matter of fact, I think most of them hate it, but they need to get used to it because the corporate world is still very much an email world. And the announcements, like in Canvas, that's what we use at Webster. I post all kinds of stuff on announcements that are really pertinent, and they need to realize that they're going to get notifications, that they need to go check it. They need to get used to that because that's very much indicative of what they'll experience also. And then finally, I personally believe that the best education, you know, just comes from talking and listening. And so I try to do as many roundtable discussions as I can. I have a online course, digital marketing. It's a graduate level course this semester. And sometimes it's really tough to, you know, pull things out of people, as you guys probably know. And, but it's really important. And when they get to a job and there's a meeting, they're going to have to know, hey, here's when I should be quiet. Here's when I should, you know, chime in. Can I read the room? Can I, you know, interpret people's body language? And that's, you know, doing it online, certainly not as great as it is in the classroom, but there's still those nuances that they can kind of practice and become adept at employing, so that when they get out into the quote unquote real world, they'll be better prepared to do that. So with that, I want to thank you all so much for listening to me. I hope it wasn't too painful, and certainly on a Friday afternoon, Cinco de Mayo. I think, Paul, I love that tie, by the way. But let's open it up today. Paul, I'll hand it over to you, and you tell me how you want to run with this.
Great. Thank you so much, Terry. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Great information. The chats, there's been a lot of discussion going on in the chats, if you were able to see some of that. Even discussion about, quite a bit of discussion about your liquid death project. So, yeah.
Well, it's funny because I was thinking about offering that up and didn't know if I should. So, you know, if you think that's...
Yeah, we'll send that out in the email.
Okay.
Yep, we can do that.
Great case study.
Yeah, what I want to do is I want to give people just a couple more minutes as we're wrapping up to enter in some questions. And while I do that, Terry, I just want to ask you and talk to you a little bit about ProfCon. Stu mentioned that earlier, and you are a presenter for that and have presented before. And just wondered if you could just mention and chat about why you think that's an important event.
Sure. Well, I haven't attended or presented at one in person, but I've done the last couple of virtual events. And, you know, I think just being in a place with like-minded people who do what you do, you know, fellowship among other educators, and in this case, I guess marketing. I just think it's a wonderful event, and I would certainly encourage everyone to go. Idaho Falls is beautiful, and everybody there kind of is crazy about fry sauce, which Paul and I don't understand, but that's another discussion for another topic. But I would certainly encourage everybody to get there if they can, because it's really useful information, not only, you know, that you're going to hear from the speakers, but to be able to interact and have, you know, fellowship with other educators is just a wonderful thing.
Great, thanks, Terry. So we have just a couple of questions that we will do here, and then after that, we'll finish announcing our winners. And we do have our $100 winner for attending the entire conference. So stick around because you do have to be present for that one. Terry, one question was, how can students showcase soft skills on their resume?
Ooh, that is a great question. Well, I think, you know, if they can highlight, you know, collaborative things that they've had to do, you know, group work, you know, anything that demonstrates, you know, any of the soft skills like communication, time management, project management. It's probably harder to demonstrate on a resume as it is getting in front of people. And unfortunately, the resume is usually key to getting in front of somebody. But what they can also do is, like your LinkedIn profile, there are things that you can, you know, put in there that can show your personality a little bit, that can kind of demonstrate, do you have some of the soft skills? And it's certainly not uncommon for potential employers to be looking at things like, you know, social media. And certainly, just as an aside, take down anything that's incriminating. But yeah, I think in the LinkedIn profile for sure, but resume, you know, highlight anything that can potentially speak to some of the things that were listed that we talked about under soft skills. And whoever answered that question, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm trying to kind of answer this, you know, off the top of my head, but if you want to talk a little bit more about it offline, I'd be happy to probably provide some better augmented answers to that.
Great, thanks. Well, we have one more question here to finish up. There was a lot of chat about culture fit when you talked about that, and how that works in a lot of remote workplace environments right now. Do you feel that that's still important in a remote environment, or what are your thoughts on that?
I do. And I think culture fit, you know, it is sort of fraught with bias and things like that. But, you know, the truth is, if you walk in, and even it doesn't mean that it has to be right, but usually you're going into some sort of pre-existing culture. And even if, you know, you don't necessarily agree with everything, I mean, certainly you wouldn't go along with anything that was suspect or you know, immoral or what have you. But I'm just saying that, you usually, owners of companies and managers are expecting people to be able to incorporate into the culture fit. And I've seen so many cases where, what we thought was maybe a good hire, once the person got him, came on board, it was like clearly they weren't aligned at all with our culture. And that's going to happen. But I think from a remote standpoint, I've worked with some companies where they're remote. They have, like weekly stand-up meetings, like what we're doing here. And culture still applies, because the culture isn't just, in the building or in a place, it's within all of us. And that's certainly something that can come across either through, Zoom, through, direct messaging chat, like on Teams or Slack. So yeah, I do think it's important.
Awesome. Thanks, Terry. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Sure.
And we're grateful for your presentation. We are excited to see you next month live at
You too.
ProfCon, and we look forward to that. Have a great day.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
All right. I have just a couple items to cover as we wrap up today. We have lots of events coming up here at Stukent. Next Friday, Kim and Jay Stice will provide their expertise on how to make your first accounting course a success. And in June, as we've spoken, we're hosting Marketing ProfCon in person right here in Idaho Falls. So click the link below to check out any of our upcoming Stukent events. As promised, we have selected 2 winners for our social media contest. These participants have shared a post regarding what they learned here today during this SDS event, and they used the hashtag StukentDS23. They will receive each a $65 gift card, and the winners are Chandra Barrett and Lisa K. So congratulations. We'll reach out to both of you. Our next giveaway is the giveaway for attending today's event. As a reminder, anyone who also attended our ePortfolio event last week has received a second entry. So this winner receives a $100 gift card, and this winner is Rebecca Stiegel. So congratulations, Rebecca. Our team will be reaching out to get your information. So congratulations to all of our winners. Once this event ends, everyone will be redirected to a page filled with the resources related to the session topics today. Feel free to browse that page and implement any of the resources you want in your course, or reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you to all of our speakers. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. Thank you for the Stukent team for making this a success. We appreciate your continued support. Have a wonderful day. Have a great weekend, and be sure to stay current with Stukent. Bye, everyone.